Hey everyone, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. We have a bunch of cool guests this week, and it's going to be a pretty awesome episode. This week we have Infinitry with us, as well as Spectrum King, Fish Ganja Guy, Brain Grow, Roger, and the whole crew. So thanks for joining us this week. Today, we do this show every week to talk about aquaponics and cannabis growing. Thanks for joining us. We try to cover both topics in detail, all different aspects of growing, both aquaponics, cannabis, sometimes soil, sometimes hydro. So this week, or we've had for quite a while, Fish Ganja Guy's been doing a kind of a side-by-side comparison, I guess the last 3 or 4 months, between the 400 watt light options from both Spectrum King and Black Dog, and he's here to tell us about what happened with that.
Alrighty, so I ran a side-by-side study between the SK400 Plus from Spectrum King against the new Phytomax 2 Series 400 watt LED from Black Dog. And this is my first run with Spectrum King lights, and I've been using Black Dogs for a couple years, so I kind of know what to expect from them. And I had a couple plants in the study, Cross of the Titans from 42, which is Clash of the Titans crossed with BSE, which is his best shit ever, that won the Emerald Cup a few years ago. And the other strain was Crystal Cookies Pheno 4. And that is from in-house genetics. It was animal cookies crossed with platinum cookies. And for each one of the plants in the study, I would take them from the same mother, get 2 cuts rooted, put one on each side. So one under the SK, one under the Black Dog Phytomax 2 Series. And I wanted to wait until I got all the results back before I went ahead and did that. I submitted my strains to Bud Genius in Southern California. It's a testing lab out here. Does great job with mold checks and THC, CBD, CBN, and they're going to have terpene profiles coming later this year. But for the Crystal Cookies 4, I got 16.23% THC on the Black Dog side, and Crystal Cookies 4 on the Spectrum King side, 18.82% THC. So that was a difference of about 2%. For the Cross of the Titans from Black Dog, 20.74% THC. And for Cross of the Titans on Spectrum King, 22.66. So again, an increase of about 2%. And so that was pretty consistent between 2 completely different strains and of different lineages under the different lights. So I felt that was kind of good, that it wasn't just a one strain specific thing where, you know, the Spectrum King spectrum got this strain to have a higher percentage, but the other one did better under the Black Dog with the infrared. Black Dogs,
so you're
they
trying
did
to
a great job, but the Spectrum Kings won the study, in my opinion. I was very impressed with the quality of the light. A little bit less heat in the room because there wasn't a bunch of infrared coming out. And I got great yields. Much heavier than I was getting over on the Black Dog side. And the plants seemed to be very happy. Always praying to the light. Didn't have any real issues over there.
What were your harvest weight differences?
Obscenely different, but I don't want to say it publicly, just because I don't want to make another company feel bad or that I'm trying to BS it. But let's just say it was very one-sided.
Well, I mean, at this point, we already posted the potency results. Do you want to give people like a ballpark percentage difference, or some kind of factor? I know that was so. When I posted the thing on the Aquaponic Cannabis Growers Group, one of the first questions is what was the yield difference. So I know there's quite a few people that are itching to know. So
let's put it this way: under each of the SK400s, each one was over a 3x3 bed. I had 4 plants in each. And for each of those, I averaged about 270 grams on the 4 plants. And keep in mind that these plants were only about 2 feet tall, just because of my height limitations. So 4 plants for a little over, what was it? A little over a half pound. And over on the Black Dog side, under 2 lights, they're on a 3x6 bed. There were probably, God, what was it, 18 plants. And of those 18 plants, I only got 270 grams.
Ouch.
That's a pretty big difference.
So I
That
know
was same feed regimen, same nutrient regimen, same reservoir, same fish
plants on
tank,
one
same
side,
sump tank, blah blah
same
blah.
air, same room, same temperature. The only thing between the light spectrums was a Panda film going down the middle of the room, open at the end, so that way it was good airflow. The water in each tank came from the same fish tank that was right below them. Everything that I put in the fish tank to supplement went to both beds, or both sides, I should say, and everything that I watered on Spectrum King side got watered over on the Black Dog side every day.
So how could, just out of curiosity, I mean, you mentioned you were concerned about one company calling BS or something like that, but I mean, how much more non-BS do you want? I mean, it's a measurement, right? I mean,
Yeah, everything else is
side
the
by
same.
side and you report it on. That's what happened. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I wouldn't be worried about BS stuff. And I appreciate you just, publishing what you do. So if you don't want to push your total yield, I totally get that. But, I wouldn't be, especially, given some of the concerns you've had with the lighting company, I wouldn't be concerned about protecting them, because they didn't seem really concerned about protecting you or their.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about those points. So for instance, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about it or I want to, but you noticed that there almost seemed like it was a fire hazard, the lack of screening on the one of the lights because of how much the ladybugs ended up building up in it, and one of the other ones was that one of the 2 lights wasn't shutting off all the way at night, which on a basic standard timer that you get at a normal hydro store, which seemed a little odd. Do you want to get into that? I mean, you mentioned it in the other episode, but we're kind of doing a final roundup.
With the Black Dogs, there was an issue where those things were turning into more of a mass grave for my ladybugs, where every grow I'd have to shake out the bodies, and that can be a fire safety issue, I think, if they're dying inside the light on the boards. And with the Black Dog, they told me it's because they have a more efficient driver, but with the normal wall outlet timer for a 240 volts, there's going to be about 5 or 6 volts that leak through, and the driver was picking that up and turning on a bunch of the diodes on the Black Dog side, and you could read a magazine underneath it. So I knew that was going to mess with the plants, but on the Spectrum King side, I didn't have any issues with losing ladybugs or anything glowing in the dark. So.
Yeah, and like we talked about this a couple of different times on the show, and that they were obviously made aware of the situation. And I personally feel like it would be an easy fix to at least just put an asterisk on their website that said, hey, you're going to need at least this kind of light controller in order to make it work. It's a known issue, so that people can be prepared for it. I mean, it seems like a small edit that could be done. So that's kind of why. I mean, maybe it's a pet peeve, or
Not only that, it's an easy mechanical fix. It's just a matter of 1 or 2 pieces of hardware that need to be added in line with to shut off the power, so it's not trickling back. It needs to reach a minimum thing. So like this is literally like a few cents, like less than $1 fix hardware wise to fix that. That's not expensive. It's just a matter of someone. It's just a missing part of the engineering.
Probably change the capacity.
That's exactly it. I mean, I've built my own home LEDs before. I built home LEDs for 7 years for the aquarium trade, and that was just something you always did to make sure that you didn't have that dim low output, because I don't want to reduce the life of the diode.
Cool.
But that was really surprising to me that they didn't have some kind of shut-off capacitor on there. It seems kind of bizarre.
Well, I think that obviously,
especially for the fact that the price is $600 difference between the lights.
Yeah, and I don't really want that to distract too much from how outperformed they were, right? I mean, who wants a light with issues on top of underperforming? If you can get a better light, and clearly across the board, I guess my only point is I don't I don't think we should be overly concerned about outing them when they don't seem overly concerned about protecting us as consumers, because I can kind of get like, okay, you know, everything's said and done. Maybe you've tested all of your equipment and everything you've done up until now and manufactured everything, and you didn't have that issue with your controllers because you use more advanced ones. But knowing about it now, you should be able to just take an asterisk and add it to your website, and it should have been done months ago. And they don't even have to change anything or do anything or cost them anything. It's like 15 minutes for a web designer. So aside from that, all I'm saying is that, you know, if they got their ass handed to them in a side-by-side, then let's report that, because it's not BS, it's not slanted, it's not anything else. They're lab results. So
yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
I just want to ask Oren Brendan a question real quick, because on one of my videos, I had somebody comment in basically saying, or calling me out, saying certain things about my study, and then I went to their forum page over on Grass City Forums, I think it was, that they said they were doing their first grow with black dogs, and basically saying to everybody there, you know, this Fish Ganja guy here should be ashamed. He's obviously a Spectrum King employee. As soon as the lights go out, he's doing something to fry these ones on the black dog side. And well, first of all, I understand this guy's saying it's his first grow, but the lights he said he's using are the Phytomax 2 series from Black Dog, 1,000 watt and 2 800 watts. So he's running for his first grow about $8,000 in lighting. So that was a little suspicious to me, but I just want to clear up. Have I ever been an employee of Spectrum King or contracted with you guys in any way, shape, or form?
No, man. In fact, even funnier, you grilled us like the detective a bunch of times to find out what we were doing, how stuff worked, and I said, "Come on down, and we'll show you, man." So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Not only that, my experience in the aquaponic industry was with Black Dog originally, and them telling me about how the different diode spectrums and stuff, and how theirs being that different color versus yours, which is pure white, was inferior and all that. And we brought you guys on the show, and you guys educated us and schooled us on why you're, you know, how wrong, you know, well, not, I don't want to say that, but how your methodology works better. And then now we've done side by sides, and now we've proven it that you can get just as good, if not better, yields out of the bright white rather than having the multicolor. Just different engineering methodologies. But you know, to me originally, and I've even been spoken to, you know, up until the point where I had a chance to see you guys growing at the Dude show from the Dude Grows show. That was where I first time I ever saw that. I helped him hang his SK600s, the first ones that you guys sent him. And I was blown the fuck away by how bright those lights were. Both of us stood back, I think, for a good 5 minutes, and we're just like, wow, it looks like daylight in here.
I appreciate you saying that. And, you know, the guys who are doing the color diode thing still, if that works for them, great. You know, they could drink their own Kool-Aid. But the problem being, plants go for intensity first, spectrum second. We study plants because there's a lot of creative storytelling in this industry, as I'm sure you've heard, in every angle of it. You know, be it nutrient sales, lighting, or whatever. There's some great stories being told out there. Not all of them true, naturally. So we say plants don't lie, people do, because the first thing we look at when we make something is the plants. This guy's eyes and nose tell me all kinds of things because he's looking at these things like a human microscope. You know?
I do have a very big nose, so.
It's accurate. It's very accurate precision proboscis.
Can't hear you, Steve.
Fish Ganja guy had no idea that I was going to get the Spectrum King guys on. That was kind of a surprise I got on the show, so that was kind of cool. I really appreciate them taking the time out of the day to come and join us for this episode. I thought it'd be kind of fun to have them on since, you know, they won the grow off, and I thought it'd be really cool to get their input, and you know, Fish Ganja guy could clear up the fact that he never worked for them and everything else. So, but yeah, does anyone have any?
I once, you know.
But he came in and, you know, he asked every question a real gardener would ask. And he asked, you know, what I appreciate is someone that cares about their plants and is looking for specific results, specific things from their plants. That tells me they know what they're doing and they know what they want to see. I mean, you studied plants for how long, and you've tried so many different things, different methodologies. Even in your aquaponics, you've tried a dozen different ways of doing it. What's the result you want? When you find it, you stick with it. We're no different. We want to get the best results from our plants. Simple as that.
Yep, that's for sure.
Welcome to the call. Be patient. Glad you could join us.
Hola. Thank you. Nice to see everybody.
We can see the top of your head.
All right, B, you're on with the usual crew, Spectrum King, and then we've got, is it Nate and Connor from Infinitry? Good guys. I vouch for them.
Very cool. Awesome. Nice to see you guys.
Anyways, we were just going over the results from my side-by-side. I explained that Spectrum King won this round. And, yeah, they were just explaining a few things with Steve and talking about quality products. And, yeah, how's everything going with you?
Not too shabby. Just waiting for these couple plants to dry. Tonight's transplant night for the next run. Yeah, I've got an amnesia. Probably gonna let go at least another week. It just wants to keep going, so I'm gonna let it keep going.
So Fish Ganja guy, did you do any terpene testing? And then how was the how triche, was there any difference in trichome production on the plants? What other differences can you tell us between the lights in terms of plant structure, how the plants behaved? What other differences can you tell us in terms of the plants between the two different lights?
Some of the differences that I did notice was the penetration I felt was good on, is my mic on? Just double check, good. Penetration was good on both sides, but the lowers on the Spectrum King side, I noticed while they were just as frosty as I would see over on the Black Dog side, they were much girthier, totally thicker stalks. I noticed a little bit stronger plants on that side just because they just did so much more vigorous growth in veg, larger fan leaves. So you have the solar power bringing in energy, but just some of the difference I noticed as far as like on my Urkel Buck 3 that I had over on the Spectrum King side compared to the ones that I had on the Black Dog side. I mean, the stalk on one, and these are just little 2-foot plants, was like my thumb. Then you go to the other side and it's like my little finger for those. I mean, it was just really noticeable that I'm going to see like better nutrient transport as the plant's life cycle goes on. Bud structure, I got good bud structure, except on the Spectrum King side, there was one plant that was on the outskirts, but if it had been not overshadowed by crystal cookies that had quadrupled in height, it would have been getting plenty and it would have been a little bit tighter, but it was just like arm-sized colas on that critical cure. But all the other plants under the Spectrum King, minus the one that was next to a mountain of a plant, great structure. Black Dog had great structure as well, very frosty on both company sides. The UV in the Black Dogs, I noticed, did help the plants color up a little bit more early on without having to do the full flush, which I know would, for a lot of people, add to bag appeal and things like that. But if you just do a proper flush over on your sides, you're going to get all those colors anyways coming out on both sides. So that's just something that you'll see to show people a prettier garden. But in the end, they were both extremely frosty, extremely tasty on both sides. I did not get a terpene test done because Bud Genius does not have it until the end of the year. And I've had a bad experience or two with SC Labs, and I just don't want to take my stuff there anymore and give them any more of my money.
You know, sorry to interrupt, John, but my buddy, I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, Zoolander Seeds, took his samples to Bud Genius, and he hasn't gotten back for like a month and a half.
Dude, he's got to follow up because I carrier pigeoned one of my samples in just a couple days ago, just because I wanted to get that last one in for this side-by-side. And within 48 hours of receipt at the lab, they have the results up online.
Oh, wow.
So your buddy still has had issues. They're a little hard to get hold of over there. I know that, but you should have a number for a rep. Did I give you the card to the one guy there?
Negative.
All right,
No.
I'm gonna text you his info. Get a hold of him, or also send you an email to somebody who actually works down at the lab facility that I was put in touch with, because that's not okay, and I'm pretty sure that they'll rectify this for you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Because I've had great results with them, and even like on 2 of my samples, they said, not pesticide, but God, there's a pathogen index. That's what it was. Pathogen index of low. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? So I got a hold of them. They're like, oh, well, if you look at this one picture we put up on your profile for this plant, look in this one little corner right here. You see that tiny little hair? Yeah, that's what they picked up. It's like, okay, what about the other one? They're like, you see this little leaf hopper husk tucked under that part of the bud? I was like, motherfucker. Okay, so you guys are really getting in there and examining everything by hand. And you're putting that up as the pathogen index. That's cool. As long as there's no mold on my plant. Like, no, you're totally clean. We just found a single hair and a piece of chitin. I was like, there's a decent attention to detail there for the price that I'm paying, and I'm definitely cool with it.
Nice.
Yeah, and when I see numbers like 22% and not one of the labs where it'll inflate it to say, hey, everything you have is 34%. You can post that up. Love us. I feel that these are respectable real numbers, that they didn't try and, powder up.
Did that was the problem you have with SC Labs, wasn't it? Is that you had
No, it
just took forever? Or
that was
other
one of the
issues?
problems. I mean, like, I don't even want to get into the whole story. It's just one thing after another. This whole process took like a month to get some results back, like 3 weeks on a pesticide check, and just the customer service experience that I had was just a fucking nightmare, and I got no apologies for it. I was like, after spending a few thousand here, and this is how this last experience has gone, I'm moving on.
I would too.
I'm gonna take my business and leave.
Mm,
All right. So one of the other things I noticed was that the Black Dogs ended up a little bit higher in CBN, and I know that I had a few thoughts, and the Spectrum King guys had a few thoughts. Did you have any thoughts on that, Fish Conjure guy?
I don't know if that would have to be with the additional UV, because I know that what is it? UV will increase the THCV, but I'm not sure about this, how that would affect the CBN. What do you think?
So IR and UV actually helps with the heat level on the leaf surface, which would break down the THC into CBN.
Boom.
I was halfway there.
So,
What were the leaf surface temperatures like on both sides?
yeah, did you have any leaf surface temperature measurements, or?
I remember I
That's a great
sent
question.
leaf surface temperatures to Spectrum King and Black Dog earlier on from my top leaves closest to the lights. And, well, the room would be about 86, 87 degrees. The leaf surface temperatures were usually around like 82, somewhere in there. It wasn't bad. I don't remember the exacts. I don't know if you guys still have them from when I sent it over to Spectrum King a while ago, but it was just a couple degrees under room temperature, so it was working perfect for me to keep my room at 85, 86 degrees.
Yeah, I think it was about the time they were on the show last time, if I remember right. Might even have been right about that same time when you took the temperature measurements. Should be on at least one of your videos, I think, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and the temperature was almost the same for both lights. It was just like a degree or two warmer consistently, just because of the infrared over on the Black Dog side. But
So the Black Dog was actually running a little bit warmer?
yeah, like we just had a massive heat wave over here in California, and I was getting temperatures outside the facility around like 110, 112 in our area. And even at night, it would be like 90 degrees. So I just had to take out on this current run to my 2 Black Dogs, because there's just too much heat production. My little AC couldn't keep up. My room was like 95 degrees, and I was just flipping into flower. There's no way that can happen. So what I did was I just took out the 2 Black Dogs, took out a bunch of plants because I have a reduced footprint. And then I got CC 140 from Spectrum King, and I have an older CC 100. So I have 400 and a SK 400 plus on one bed with a 100 watt CC, or a closet case if people listening don't know what that product is from them. And then on the other 3x6 bed, I've got a 400 plus with a 140 closet case. So basically over 2 3x4 areas, which is what I reduced my plant count down to. I've got about 540 watts in the Spectrum Kings. So it's reduced heat because I went with those 2 lower wattage lights, but it's still going to be great quality because I've seen what those can do. And I figure with that overlapping footprint that I've got between the lights, it's like 540 watts in that little area. I'm pretty sure my plants are going to thrive perfectly.
Sounds good, man.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
So is there anything?
Have you guys done any have you guys done any side by sides with any other light companies there at Spectrum King? I mean, you guys don't have to necessarily name who it was, but have you guys tested some of you guys against some of the other LED competitors?
We've tested against bulbs and other LED companies. We stopped doing that for a while, then people asked us to do it again. But most people ask us to test against double-ended bulbs because that's the real competition for any LED company. They can point fingers at each other all they want, but our target as a collective should be light bulbs. So we figured, why not go against the most sold item until recent history, which was the double-ended fixture.
Yeah.
Right. You guys have some comparisons on your YouTube channel already, right? If
Yes.
I remember correctly, you guys have some pretty extensive documented side-by-sides with CNH and different fixtures, and yeah.
We try to show them everything, all the details, the truth of it, because we got so tired of other companies just straight out lying that, like, wait a minute, yeah, come on, just here it is. Here's this, here's that, look for yourselves, you tell us. And people will tear us a new one in the comments, and other people will like it. We'll get some results up there, we'll show them how much power was actually used, how many BTUs were actually used versus, and there's no comparison. And like Fish Conjure Guy said, it's been hot as hell in California, and ACs are dying and suffering. I had growers come in today buying a couple of our lights to keep his plants alive because he can't even turn his bulbs on because of the heat.
Right.
You know? And the funny part is he's now a regular customer because he's seeing what he did as a stopgap measure to keep his plants alive is now what he's going to switch all his lights to because it works better than his bulbs. So it was a pleasant surprise to have a guy do it that way. The heat wave helped us in a weird way. But,
right.
You know.
Well, it highlighted one of the benefits of your light, right? I mean, that's not anything, that's a good thing. I think probably for the end user as well. I think you'll probably be happier in the long run. And, you know,
This week at Spectrum King, the only thing hotter than the heat are the savings.
I don't know if I go that far, but I appreciate it. Yeah, that's fun.
I think something should be watched here pretty soon too is JR Token's next flower run. He's putting an SK next to 630 ceramic metal highlight.
Okay.
You know,
Sure.
that's another real big hot one right now. I run a 315, and you know I'm really excited to see what it does right next to it because I've seen them side by side and the spectrums are damn near identical.
With your 315, what kind of coverage area are you seeing for real?
It's in a 40-inch by 40-inch tent, and it's wall-to-wall coverage. And, you know, I get a decent footprint. I wouldn't stretch it beyond that. I honestly would put a 630 in there and still probably be happier.
Okay. I was just curious. A couple
3 by
different
3.
We've seen are what we think and what we've seen with what we tested, and some other perceptions, I'll call them out there in the marketplace. I just find those things get kind of hot. I can't explain why they get hot like that.
You know, I've seen someone put out a data point of it raises ambient temperature 3 degrees for every one that's running. You know, yes, no, maybe. You know, all I know is I had to buy an air conditioner. I live in Oregon, and I'm running one light, and you know,
Wow.
You know, just to keep it under 80 degrees because I don't like it above 80 degrees. But you know, that's
we run LED. We love it above 80 degrees.
exactly.
That's what I love, you know. But I'm just glad you said that because I mean I know what I saw with it, and I'm thinking the old engineering formula is a watt is a watt is a watt. Therefore, every watt equals 3.412 BTUs. Yet, when we're measuring in the room the heat rise, we're going, wait a minute, man, this thing shouldn't be doing that. It's kind of warmer than it should be. What's going on here?
That UV
wavelength.
pushes that leaf surface temperature. That square wave is great for adding on biomass and resin, but man, it just pumps out to leaf surface temperature.
Yep.
I mean, if I put my hands under it when I'm working with my plants, I damn near need sunscreen. I can't do more than 10 minutes at a time without feeling a serious effect on my skin.
I got you. Yep. Yeah. just like hearing from other people's mouths, because all the measurements I take, because we're a manufacturer, people will think we're trying to just stretch the truth or bend the picture. We just want people to know what we're seeing. And I'm glad you pointed that out. Or you saw the same thing.
The only benefit I've noticed with building my own LED fixtures from scratch, using the different diodes you could get, I use a lot of rapid LED stuff, and I forget the Crees and stuff like that. And then I talked to you guys a little bit about this in person. The only one that's actually plant beneficial of any of the non-visual spectrums is UVA anyway. UVB doesn't benefit the plants, and to my knowledge, IR doesn't benefit the plants. You guys can correct me on that if I'm wrong on that.
A little bit. It's the percentage of the dose. Both.
Isn't it only the phytochrome, like in the beginning and end of the day, that matches the IR? It's that super far red and slightly outside of visual spectrum red. Is that correct?
That's a specific nanometer range for a specific result. Yeah, that does exist, but IR and UV do stimulate trichome production. It's a question of the dose. Most people get the dose too hot, which is detrimental to the THC in the trichome. So when you get the balance right, then you see those THC results, which you pointed out versus the black dog. What that tells me is that they're studying other people's products and trying to bandwagon it without actually going deep themselves into the plant study to see what they can get. I've seen that with a lot of companies that they'll the red and blue thing was based on a white paper from ages ago. We talked about that when you were in the shop. There's still companies doing it. It's been disproven, since 1973. Even McCree himself disproved it, but people still do it because that works for their marketing story. The whole reason we came up with plants don't like people do is because I don't care what other people say. What do my plants say? Because that's all that matters to us.
Yeah, it's funny. We were doing a trade show in Colorado. It was the Indo Expo. This was like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
2 years ago. And I think they were Persian. I don't know.
No, they're big tall white guys.
No. I'm not talking about that.
Okay, not them. Okay.
So these Persian guys, and they're with their power meter with blue and red light, on this little racking with little vegetables. And they're like, yeah, look, check it out, 3,000 par. Yeah, right at the fixture. It's like, no. No plant can live there.
Mm-hmm.
No plant can grow there. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just guys with money thinking they can just throw money at it and make it grow. It's totally wrong.
Well, it's at the end of the day, the storytelling has to stop. And the more discussions we have like this, where people tell the truth from what they saw with their own eyes, the better off we're all going to be. Yeah, the simplest. That's my feeling. We got to show the truth. We got to stop the bullshit and just come out and here it is. See for yourself.
I bought the 315 based off of the marketing. Oh, you're telling me I get the same out of a 600 from a 600 that I ran for 10 years out of a 315 watt fixture? Sign me up. And I didn't see the same numbers, but I saw better quality, that's for sure. But that also could be from the 15 other things I've started doing since I picked up a 315.
Yeah. I'm also really excited to see JR Tokens 600 versus 630. That's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's, and actually it'll be sitting next to a 600 watt metal highlight as well. So it'll actually be a 3-way, all in the same tray with the Spectrum King in the middle. Yeah, and and if anyone else follows JR, like he's a dialed in grower. I mean, that's some of the best cannabis I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, and his Thin Mint wrecked me.
I
haven't had the pleasure, but I've heard good things.
His Thin Mint and tincture.
You're token, or hasn't had the pleasure. Hint.
Oh, buddy, wait till the expo.
So is JR running his SK400 that he has, or is he picking up a 600?
No, he's got the 4, and that's going to be going right next to the 630. Which when I saw it right after it got set up, it was bright as day and it was maxed out, and that's great. But like I said, the spectrum was damn near identical. And part of what drew me to Ceramic Metal Highlight beyond the square wave technology square wave ballast was the spectrum, and and this whole claim, CMH bulbs are only lose 10% after a year. Bullshit. This bulb is 11 months old. I'm gonna have to replace it because it's a solid 15% dimmer than it was a year ago.
It will stay that long if you keep it very cool, which doesn't work for your plant. So it's kind of a bizarre trade-off.
Hey,
Yeah,
have you
Because
guys,
it's more efficient, the cooler it is, right? So, or the hotter it is on those lights, right? I mean, so as that lamp gets hotter, it gets more efficient. But again, you have that you're sort of fighting your plants with your pressure deficit and everything else. And I run two 330 watt ceramic metal halides next to each other in about 4x6 or so, and they're definitely cooler than a lot of the alternatives. So like say in comparison to a 400 watt metal halide or something like that somebody would veg with, I definitely think they're cooler than a lot of alternatives, but they definitely still generate a lot of heat for the area that they are and light that you get out of them. So I think a lot of it depends on what you compare them to. Like in comparison to an LED, the temperature, the ambient change temperature in the room just isn't as high. And I have some high-end LEDs in there in the same room as well, and it's pretty easy to turn one off and then watch the temperature change and then turn it back on or back and forth, and be able to do that. So I do think that one of the things that CMH did make me a believer in was the white spectrum, though. Like seeing the difference in the enhanced levels of CMH in a whiter light than just like an HPS. I feel like there was a big difference in quality, kind of like what the other guy said, that it was, dense nugs, a lot more resin, all of those things. And so, I think that it made me less of a believer in the red spectrum effect overall, just by using them. But they definitely seem hotter. And like they also talked about, like just putting your hand underneath it versus putting your hand underneath an LED consuming the same amount of wattage, you can feel the difference over time. So all of those, just want to echo all those same personal experiences with both LED and CMH.
I think when we get to the point where you measure a spectrum in a larger bandwidth, not just 400 to 700, we'll get a lot more truth in advertising because people have to show, if you go from 240 to 800 or 240 to 950, you'll see all the things that plants use that the PAR measurement just doesn't take into effect. But you'll also see that they generate heat and things that LEDs just don't do. So yeah, your leaf temperature will get hotter. That's why I tell people, you're running your bulbs, you think you're 78 degrees, you take a plant tissue sample or a tissue reading on the top of your canopy, your plant can think it's anywhere from 90 to 110 degrees.
Right.
Sativas, for example. And if you take that same leaf temperature and you bring the room up to that temperature in LED, you'll get very similar results and you'll save a ton in air conditioning. It will be hot and get your VPD up naturally, but your production costs and your quality go through the roof that way. That's just, you can use a bulb, it works. And we never said bulbs don't work. We're just trying to find a more efficient way to grow.
Sure.
And I guess here's a question. So we had a question from chat. What is how would like the Closet King 140 compare to like a 315, for example?
Well, the 315, can cover up to 4x4, whereas a Closet Case 140 covers a 3x3. It has a really good intense 3x3 footprint, and you're running.
I know. Well, to speak to that, over at Ouroboros, they're using it actually to cover like a 44x44 area for the Closet King 140. So they're actually doing bigger than a 3x3 and they're seed startings and vegetables.
Yeah, again, for vegetables, a mother's little helper. That's why Ouroboros, I was telling them that the mother's little helper is meant to cover a 4x4 for veg.
Yeah.
Nothing for flowering plants. Flowering plants, 3x3 on the Closet Case 140 all day.
Oh yeah.
You could cover larger, but you're going to slow the growth down. We're always thinking of optimal growth cycles. That's why we don't exaggerate the coverage areas.
Oh yeah.
Depending on which brand of 315 CMH you had, the one we were testing, its footprint was a solid 3x3. There was no way in hell that was going to cover a 4x4. But
again, that's why up to 4x4, depending on what bulb you're doing.
Yeah, well, let's say somebody was using 315 over a 3x3 grow area for flower. How would
Yeah.
you have you heard anything from testers of the CC140 or anything? How they would compare the like the quality or the yield to the 315 and the 3x3?
Well, what we did here was a specific case where we have a grower growing with an MLH 140 versus a C315, a 315 CMH 4000 Kelvin bulb, not the 3100 or the 2700, the 4000. And he said that they were really very much neck and neck, and that he thought the LED was actually beating it as far as quality veg goes, and it was doing it with much less than half the power. So he was stoked on that.
Yeah, this guy's name is SAV Farms on Instagram.
And he's got pictures up there and stuff. But I mean, my answer is simple. Even if you say, well, it doesn't do the same job, but it does a damn good job, but it uses less than half the power, I mean, that's a win in my eyes.
Yeah. Plus, you have to also factor in how much you're saving on your AC bill there too.
Right. Yes.
Apparently, it's very warm up in Oregon right now.
Well, it's definitely hot as hell down here. We can vouch for that.
I'm fucking sweating on the couch.
In Oregon, for sure.
Hey, I'm not in the valley in Phoenix. This is not hot. I just like to keep my plants comfortable. I just want to make that clear.
It's fucking hot here. We're in the Medford area, Rogue Valley. It's been hot for a while, for long enough.
Yeah, I'm out in
By
the
end of
I'm out in the
July,
Tualatin Valley, and it's not hit above 90 the last week, so I'm not complaining.
You
I wouldn't
suck.
complain about that either.
It's been over 100 every day here for, I don't know, 3 weeks.
Yeah, brutal, just brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say about 95. It hit over 100 for 2 days, but I think it's been around about
I can only
95
accept
here
that
for
in
like
Vegas.
3 weeks though.
Yeah, I can only do temperatures like this in Vegas because I can retreat into the casino for some air conditioning and cigarette smoke every now and then if I have to.
So is there anything else in regards to your grow off you wanted to talk about? If not, I wanted to give the Infinitry gentleman a chance to talk for a bit.
No, it was definitely a good experience. It was worth picking up a few extra lights and seeing what would be better for my garden in the future. That being said,
It would be better.
Yeah.
what's that?
In case you're wondering,
Why I didn't hear what you said.
I said Spectrum King would be better for your garden. In case you were wondering,
Yeah, that's the feeling I'm getting.
that's
I'm
the overall.
gonna concur with you there, Doctor.
Okay.
All right, and then yeah, let's switch over to Infinitry because I definitely want to hear what these guys are about.
I also thanks a lot to Spectrum King for joining us. You guys are more than welcome to stay and hang out if you want. If you guys want to take off, I more than understand. You guys have
Well,
spent
I'm
quite a
curious
bit
to
of
hear
time.
what Infinitry has to say too, man. I like to hear about new stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd
So-
like y'all to stay too. It's more fun when y'all stay than when y'all left.
Well, I definitely just wanted to stop and plug both of y'all's YouTube channels. Fish Ganja guy has his YouTube channel, and he's going to have his own separate video on the side-by-side.
Actually,
Following up.
I'm going the efficiency route. I'm just going to link people over to this podcast for the results.
Since we went and got us Dr. King to chime in as well.
Excellent.
And then be sure to check out Spectrum King. Their website is spectrumkingled.com, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then their YouTube channel is Spectrum King LED. They have lots of really awesome YouTube content. He has some really cool breakdowns of VPD, all kinds of really cool content on there. If you guys also want to learn more about vapor pressure deficit and temperatures and humidity and stuff, they gave a great breakdown on the last time they were on the show. I think it was episode 46, I think it was. So definitely go back and check that out. They were amazing guests and had a lot of really cool content on there. So if you aren't familiar with them, go back and check them out. They had answered a lot of cool questions, and I'm super grateful. I had a chance that they were kind enough to give me a full tour of their place and show me a bunch of cool stuff that they're about to release. I don't know if they want to talk about anything at all or if they're still where they're at. But if not, we'll give them the floor in a little bit and then I'll let the Infinitry guys here talk. So Infinitry guys, why don't you guys tell us about what you guys do? I know not many people know about you guys. I saw you guys on Reddit and then wanted to invite you guys on the show to give you guys a chance to talk. I love to support other people that have the aquaponic cannabis and sustainable cannabis cause out there. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Awesome. We're having a blast already.
It's a really big.
So So tell us about what you guys are about.
Yeah, so we're a small startup based out of the Washington, D.C. area. And we figured we'd tell you guys a little bit of our backstory and how we got into this whole scene. So we actually met each other in college. We were both at UVA, and we had this idea together to start an automated grow box that was app connected and basically getting beginner growers up to a level where they could actually have a successful grow. We met so many kids who were like, we tried growing weed and like, you know, I got 2 weeks in and my plant died and blah, blah, blah. We heard this story over and over again. So we just got super excited about this idea and we took off with it. We had about 2 or 3 grows using soil grow in our first boxes. And one of our customers actually was doing some research, and we had never heard of aquaponics before, believe it or not. It's not as popular over here on the East Coast as it seems to be on the West Coast. So he said he heard something about if you added, you know, fish water into your grow, that it would add a bunch of nutrients, and he just had a silly little idea, and we kind of took off with it. And so we started doing some research into aquaponics and just fell in love with the idea of it. We fell in love with the organic nature of it, with the sustainability, the symbiotic ecosystem, just the whole thing really aligns with all of our ideals as a company and as a brand and kind of where we wanted to go. So for the past about 2 years, we've been developing and growing through our Infinitry grow box, which is an aquaponics unit. It's 2x3, so not too big. But basically, what we're about is, you know, getting beginners and getting the mass market into aquaponics. And we want to make it really easy on people. So we automated the whole process, you know, from LED control to the nutrients to adjusting the pH through filtering the water. So basically, we want customers just to get a box and we'll guide them through the setup. And then they're basically good to grow from there. And, you know, just spread the word, the good word of aquaponics. And yeah, that's what we're about.
Awesome. So just a little bit more about your box. You gave the size, you know, of it a little bit. So is it ideally you guys loading that with like 1 plant? Is that kind of like what you're thinking, or did you guys think more about like for instance, as a medical card holder here in Oregon, I can get 6 plants. So like I know you're saying you just wanted to get beginners into it, right? Is that kind of what you're thinking, like just to get somebody growing 1 plant and get it going? Is that kind of the idea?
So that's what our customers have been doing so far. But actually, one of our newest growers who's in DC, he actually is starting his plants with 2 clones in 1 box. So we specially designed his basin to hold 2 separate plugs. And he's been having a lot of success with it so far. So we feel we're going to move in the direction, probably initially because of our size, of 2 to 3 plants. But I mean, we'd love to hear some more about your guys' expertise and what you think about we can manage in that kind of grow space. So obviously we've gotten a lot of interest in people who wanted to grow 2 to 3. And initially we pushed them for 1, but now that we have a new grower who's going for it, we're excited to see the results.
Well, I think I like the, you know, sort of the all-in-one setup that you're, you know, because I do think that what intimidates a lot of people are, you know, a lot of the things that you just mentioned about aquaponics, which is, you know, like controlling the pH and all that kind of stuff. And I was just wondering too, the bottom picture on your guys' website, the pH reads 5.4. So I'm not really sure what you're growing in there, but your fish might be a little concerned at 5.4. But
we've actually done a lot of research and just playing around with the pH. And in our experience, actually, we found that pH levels from 5.5 to 6.5 can work. And like we've tried 5.0.
What fish are you keeping alive in that pH that aren't discus or angelfish or neons?
Well, we've started just getting our fish from local streams around DC. And I mean, yeah, we really haven't had, I mean, it's interesting because there's a study that came out about the pH in the streams, and they found that at certain points it would drop all the way down to 4. and then other points would be up at 7. So I guess very resilient.
Absolutely. When you get, especially when you get big rainstorms and stuff, you get a big runoff of leaf material and things like that, and it can rapidly acidify the rivers and stuff. Fish can easily handle a rapid drop in pH. It's a sudden increase in pH that tends to be more lethal.
Well, that actually makes sense why we haven't had issues, because our box only has a pH down, or the only thing it'll do is drop pH automatically, because of the nature of the grow system. Since it's so small, when you add water, the pH will naturally rise at a nice little even pace. And so we hit it with a pH down solution, which will definitely bomb it, but we pretty much just microdose, and we do it over a period of time. So it's very gradual. And then it kind of just levels out right around 6.0, 5.5, 6.5. And the only issues we've had with the fish is when we put them in initially, if it's a huge pH change, then they'll have a lot of stress going right in. But it seems like once they've settled in, they'll make it all the way through multiple grows, no issues.
Yeah, and we've really aimed the automation recently just to get it right in between, pretty a tight-knit group between 5.9 and 6.1 for the pH. So we never really get that low unless, when we were first testing, I think on that app was probably, a sample picture just from our designs.
Oh yeah, I'm just giving you a hard time. And so, normally we recommend in aquaponics, and like we've done here on the podcast before, we usually recommend 6.5 to 6.8 for growing cannabis for sure, just because that's kind of where you avoid most of the lockout issues and get the best uptake. So that's generally where we like to keep it at. And you can usually, obviously whatever you guys are using to adjust it, you should be able to just control that. Like as a user, I should be able to say, I only want it, I want to stay within this window. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely. That's easy because it's actually harder to get it down to a certain level without, overwhelming the buffering capacity of the water and just dropping it so low that it can't recover. So,
yep, it just depends on the means that you use pH down. There's a couple of different options. You can use carbonic acid, you could use phosphoric acid, you could use hydrochloric acid. There's a couple of different agricultural options.
Yeah, so that's the next thing I was going to ask is what you use for your pH up and down solutions.
We actually use AquaDown. Have you heard of it?
I used to make it.
Relatively familiar.
Yes, I know exactly. They start off with a 55 or 50%, 57% base, and then dilute it.
Yeah, it's mostly phosphoric acid.
It's 11%, correct? 11% phosphoric.
Something like that. Anyway, it's primarily phosphoric acid, which obviously, like you're talking about, microdosing it over time is very important because you don't want it to crash. And then other things like how well established your microbial life is and the colony is, and how much you feed, you can drop the pH at a faster level. So, and especially over time, like if you're starting out a new system, you can pretty much expect a crash once you get a fully established microbial colony. So at some point, the system is going to lower it on its own. So it's not like a steady thing that you can just put it on a schedule and say you should feed this much over this amount of time, because that's going to change in a new system for sure.
Right. We in this grow, which we just pretty much just started a couple weeks ago, we actually had that happen, and it was insane because we hadn't had it happen like that so intense. But within, I don't know, maybe a week, less than a week, it dropped all the way from like 6.2 to like 5.1. It just dropped so fast. And I think it's because we put in stream water, because we were thinking maybe that would help the bacterial colony establish, and it must have, because it just like immediately right off the bat just started dropping like a rock. But the thing is, when you fill this tank, it actually buffered out back to like 6.3. So
yeah, that makes sense. So anytime you have basically the microbial presence is going to lower the pH. It's kind of like it's one of the ways, like in fruit fermentation and different things like that you actually measure whether or not it's done. So when like I just finished doing a fermented fruit extract for some plant food and supplement for my aquaponic systems, and I measure the pH to measure when it's done, because in the ferment, as the microbial life blooms, it lowers the pH in the solution, and that's how I know when it's about done. When it actually gets down to less than 4. So I can actually use that to lower the pH in my system as well. So it's really a measurement in a way, or a sort of a byproduct of, you know, microbial life. So that's why you see a difference as your system gets older. It'll balance itself much better as long as you buffer it properly. And so I guess that's my next question for you too, is what do you use for a buffer or a pH up in most situations like that?
We pretty much have, because our system is so small, it's 15 gallons for the aquarium and 5 gallons for the basin, for the water culture basin. Just adding water, because the water level, especially if the plant starts really taking off, you can like see it drop by the day. And so if you wait, I don't know, 3 weeks to a month, see it drop, add water, the pH will buffer out like a point or more. And so, especially like, you know, over the course of the grow, it pretty much figures itself out, just because you hit it, we drop it initially, get it into a really nice range, and then over time it drops and they add and drops and they add, and it kind of works. We found that adding a pH up just doesn't seem necessary. I mean, maybe in the future, but thus far it hasn't really been.
So how are you, I guess without adding a pH up, how are you handling calcium and potassium deficiencies?
So in terms of our nutrients, we have a separate basin, and what we've been using so far that seems to be working is a mixture of, I think it's like 4 to 2 to 1 of, is it seaweed? Yeah, seaweed. Yeah, seaweed to bone meal we were just using a solution of ground up banana peels, basically all blended together.
And then, so you mentioned that the pH might be too low for the nutrients absorption. And yeah, we have noticed that, but typically for us, I think the issue was more that the pH was actually too high for nutrient absorption, right? I don't know if has it ever been too low. You guys getting deficiency?
Well, maybe that was our issue, is that it wasn't in that golden zone they were talking about with the 6.5 to 6.8, and we could have been, you know, sitting at 6.2, we could have been too low.
Very true.
Yeah, so that's definitely some good advice.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll definitely get some potassium out of banana peels. You know, probably not. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on how large a plant you're growing. As long as you're you're cycling through water a lot, and I guess that kind of depends on a lot of things. But I guess the main point is that the banana peels themselves are probably not going to provide a ton of potassium unless you're using like a whole bunch of them. Especially for cannabis, as you move through flowering is kind of like the important zones. You do get some, and probably the more, you know, if you're going that route, the more the better, but you probably would be better served by like collecting them into a ferment. So if you look at like I talked about, fermented fruit extracts or different things like that to sort of break those down more and have them more readily available when you need them to be, as opposed to taking longer, breaking down in your system and possibly, you know, creating anaerobic zones that you don't, you know, that will become unhealthy for like your roots and stuff like that. If you're breeding something that could possibly become pathogenic for your roots, then that'll become a problem over time, especially as your system ages.
Right. So you're saying that basically bananas or fruits can work, but you just have to make sure they ferment ahead of time.
Has to break down, and you need a lot. Like for potassium, you would need like a few hundred banana peels to actually do a full start to finish cannabis grow. You really need to rely on stuff like potassium carbonate or potassium silicate or potassium.
Well, they put in kelp, I think, is what you guys, one of the things you guys mentioned as well. So that's probably where you're getting the majority, you know, of your nutrients. I would say that the reason that I would recommend you do banana peels or fruit in a separate ferment first is just so that you can control your environment and even add in microbes that you want to grow and break it down, as opposed to just whatever you gather in your system from your environment. So by fermenting it ahead of time, you can make sure that you're using something like a lactobacillus, for instance, like labs that you can make yourself or purchase through like an EM1 Bokashi brand or something like that, so that you know you're not breeding something that's either bad for you or bad for your plants in that process. And then once it's all been broken down and that cellulose layer, has been broken down so it's readily available nutrients, then you can pour that into your system separately. And I would recommend doing something like that as opposed to just adding in your banana peel mix or blend, I guess, as you were saying.
So let me see if I got this right. Are you saying that you can actually selectively breed for specific bacteria colonies to grow within the ecosystem via the fermentation process?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what was it, an episode or two ago, we spent a good 40 minutes, I think, talking about that.
Yeah, so basically, like we were talking about, is you just take in a separate jar, you add in all of your stuff. So you want to take, like, for instance, the one I just did, I harvested some sour plums out of my front yard. They taste gross, even when they're ripe. Nobody uses them for anything. Usually they just fall on the ground. So I had my kids go through and pick up as many as they could and throw them into a 5-gallon bucket. I take about a third of that and just, they love to smash them up too, so they just give them hammers and let them go to town. And then once it's all good and smashed up, then I do a third of plant material. In this case was fruit. I do the rest water all the way up to pretty much the top, cover it up, and I throw an EM1 Bokashi brand, which is just inoculated with lactobacillus, so it's a probiotic, similar to what you would find if you go to the store and buy like Good Belly probiotic juice or something like that. It's got the same stuff in it. It's from the same stuff that really is in your intestinal tract as well. It's just a different strain of bacteria. So throw that in there, and you're using those microbes to break down the fruit, in this case, back into the potassium and magnesium that it started out as. And then you strain that out. I feed that back to the worms. The solid part of it, what I strain out, I feed that back to my red worm bin. And then the juice, the water-soluble nutrients that are left over go back into the aquaponics system.
That's so cool. That's really amazing. So my question for you is, because we're building a product here that we're looking to grow at scale and be able to provide to people across the country, what would your recommendation be for us to be able to provide them with the proper nutrients without having to necessarily ferment it all ourselves and ship it out with the product?
Well, what I would recommend you looking into is probably incorporating a couple of things. First of all, you said you had like a separate reservoir where you can put in water-based nutrients, which is great. And kelp is a great option for that, and there's even a couple other ones. So you might stick with more water-soluble supplements as much as possible. And you kind of have a couple different ways to go with that. The other thing I'd recommend you looking at is maybe incorporating some type of red worm bin into your model so that people could throw in their banana peels and break down stuff that you would normally compost, as long as they stay away from like meats and they stick to like fruit and vegetable waste. Then you can essentially just have water rinsed through that. That's for the most part what I do with my worm bins here. Is I use the worm leachate extensively. It just drains through and comes out the bottom, and it doesn't hold in the bottom like a lot of worm bins do, where it can sort of like build up and toxify in the bottom. So mine don't hold water, they just sort of absorb through. So if you can figure out some way to incorporate a red worm bin where people could make use of the stuff they'd normally just throw in the garbage, I think that would probably be a great way to supplement stuff. And the worms will really help you break down stuff so that you don't have to ferment it and do a lot separately, but would allow you to do that if you wanted to. Obviously, you could still do a ferment and add it into your liquid bin.
What happened there?
Uh-oh.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. Yeah.
We didn't know anything about that. The liquid soluble is nice because we can run it right through the pump. But that's a whole new realm that we haven't explored.
Cool. We covered a lot of different nutrients early on in our podcast. We went through sort of like each one of the main nutrients one by one and what you can use to supplement for them. So you guys might want to check out some of our earlier episodes and kind of go over what those are. And if you know, what we try to do is provide, you know, the information necessary for growing cannabis. So you should be able to find a lot of options in there for things that would make sense for you guys, since you're doing aquaponics anyway. A lot of people stick with a lot of the stuff that Steve mentioned for potassium because it is water soluble or easy to supplement. And then maybe the other thing that you could look into is a way to incorporate a dual root zone system that would allow you to have a place to add in like maybe dry amendments or some sort of compost even to a soil layer, which is what Steve is a big proponent of and has been for a while.
Yeah, definitely. We were actually playing around with including a media-based grow bed that would have worms throughout, but we ended up not doing it. Because we had so much success with deep water culture that we decided not to take the plunge. But definitely some cool stuff.
Everyone has success with deep water culture until they don't.
Well, everybody can have. No, everybody can have success with deep water culture. Period.
Well, you can grow, especially in aquaponics, you can get buds, but the issue ends up later on when you're trying to match hydro or match the upper end of soil that you end up with certain things that mycorrhizae end up just are almost required for in terms of nutrient input, which tend to not really like fully aquatic environments. There's a few exceptions if you're running high nutrients in a fully hydroponic environment, but you know, and otherwise you really do need a small percentage for that, you know, especially certain micro molybdenum, and especially in aquaponics, molybdenum plays a really big role because you have much higher than normal nitrogen because the nitrogen is always immediately available. It really does deplete the available molybdenum a little bit quicker, and you end up with some of the things that, you know, just the fungi and the fungal networks do a better job of inputting per day into the plant. And that's one of the things that I've noticed, especially doing side-by-sides between doing wicking beds and soil beds and aquaponics and dual root zones and media beds and raft beds, was that, and full DWC, was that, that was one of the bigger differences.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very good expertise. We were thinking about, we haven't done this, but offering even different models, like a media-based grow bed, deep water culture.
Very cool. No, your design has a lot of flexibility, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that you could still use, the dual root zone, you could still have the bottom root zone be deep water culture and the top root zone be soil. You could still be a dual root zone.
I agree. Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. You can buy those. Well, I had something come up. Somebody came over. I had to leave for a few minutes. I missed what your system's like, but you could definitely just go as simply as in a 5-gallon bucket. You could buy one of those lids they make now with the big 6-inch. You could cram that full of Pro Mix or something like that and build a little, let it grow out. And whatever falls in, you clean it up, change the reservoir, keep the sediment from getting in there, and you could build a dual root zone that way too, like Marty said. But it can never drip into the water reservoir, as well as the water can never get up into the peat. So you would, or whatever medium potting mix or whatever you'd be using. So yeah, I agree 100%. I was going to, well, you're right. We're right on the same page there. I was thinking the same thing. Thank you, Marty.
So what other aspects do you guys want to talk about in regards to your box? You guys are using LED lighting, and you guys have an automated. How many different nutrient solutions are in your little auto doser?
So we've just been making, for simplicity on our case and for our customers, like a simple basin. So we've been making them a mixture, and then just been dosing that basically.
So is it a 2-part or a 3-part or?
Yeah, 3-part mixture.
3-part? Okay, that's cool.
We're gonna build bone meal and food.
Is it kind of like a pH up, pH down, and a nutrient solution then, or?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then you guys are using LEDs. You want to talk a little bit about that? It seems like you guys have done a little bit of research.
Listening into Spectrum King and all of their research and everything they've done in terms of I think they were talking about the full white LED diet, because we actually currently have an 8-band LED, and we've been in the you know, in the red and blue and UV and IR ranges. But you know, we're here for your guys' knowledge, so we're very interested to hear more about if there's a better way to do it, and you know, how would you suggest going about that?
Your objective is to grow plants, correct?
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
So, step one, what's best for plants? If you look at those colored diodes do elicit specific reactions within plants, but the best source for plants is still that thing up there in the sky. That's what we studied first. And you know, that thing up there in the sky gives plants what they need and get the best reaction from them. Now, getting a spectrum like that is one part of it. The other part is the intensity and the proximity to the plants you intend to be working with. So you need something with dimming control, because if one run you're testing your system and you're doing some wheatgrass, well, that, you know, you don't need a whole lot of light for that. But if round two you raise that light up and you're going to you know, 18-inch tall cannabis plants or 2-foot tall cannabis plants, you need more intensity. So the spectrum of natural sunlight still the best gain, because you get more light per watt of power put in than any colored diode blend mix, period. So you can play with colored diodes all you want, and some people get really carried away. I've seen guys with 13 band and 8 band, but at the end of the day, when we go back to the lab to put them over plants, full spectrum light wins every test we've done. We do tweak a couple colors in our own lights, don't get me wrong, but the base is still full spectrum white light.
Just take this in mind. Full spectrum light, right? Now you're going to start seeing full spectrum oils, full spectrum, you know, hash. You're going to start seeing full spectrum everything. It's going to be the new craze. Mark my words. It's going to be the new craze.
That's wild. Yeah, our grow light is 8 band, blue red, 250 watts. It is dimmable because it's 2 feet above the plant. So we turn it down real low when it's a baby, and then by the time it gets down.
Can you adjust the height of the light?
No, the height is not adjustable, but we found that it pretty much does the job, just dimming it, because by the time it gets about half, then you can pretty much put it on 75% to 100% power from that point on, and it'll just suck it all up. But you need to definitely look into bright white.
Well, you know, it's just like some of the guys said earlier, they used to make their own lights and play with cobs. I think back in the day when you came in the office, Steph, I think we talked about the Cree CXB 3070. It was from years ago, now the 3590. I mean, it's a good chip and it does the job. If you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, there's plenty of decent wheels out there waiting for to be used. Yeah, obviously I like what we make, but if you're doing your own thing and you want to get something which covers the space you have, you know, you should keep that option open and look into it, because you'll see full spectrum light will get you better results for your fish and your plants.
Hey, just test it for yourself. That's it.
Yeah,
it's done.
Yeah, we definitely will.
And what about cost per diode difference? Are they equivalent pretty much across the board, or is there a difference in price?
Pretty much across the board. It just depends, you know, how you know, who you know and where you're buying your parts from.
There's that, but also there's a thing in the LED world called binning, and you know, you can have a part number, but that part number doesn't mean you got the Ferrari. You may have bought the Pinto. The part number is step one, and what quality level is it that you got?
You got the bastard child. You get the bastard stepchild. You didn't get the pure blood.
You know, if you get the Corvette, you want it with the Corvette engine. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things when you look at diodes. Don't just take the first number and go, "Oh, great, I got it. That's the one," because that's part of the equation. Get the one and then find out what bin number it is, what quality level and output it's supposed to have.
It's like Jon Snow, you know, right? He's supposed to be a Stark, but he's not really a Stark, right?
Yeah, but he's the king now. He's the king now.
Yeah.
Oh man.
King of the North.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're bad. We're telling ourselves now. You know, so.
Hey, so I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we had Silver Arm sneak in on the show tonight. He's awful glad. What's up, man?
Hey, Bubba.
You just said
I've been wanting to be on the show, but you know how it is when you have a kid. I got a 5-year-old daughter. She already opened the door twice.
Yeah, my son was up here a little bit.
What are you doing, Daddy?
For those of you guys that don't know, Silver Arm is the oldest aquaponic cannabis YouTube channel on the internet. So props to him for having the oldest continuous aquaponic
Glad to
content
meet
on the web.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming.
If you're learning, man, learning on aquaponics.
I was just looking the other day, actually. I messaged him. He was the first person I contacted about doing anything too. And he was, he actually messaged me back a while later, I think, and was like, hey man, put up more videos. He's like, I need somebody else doing this too. So it was pretty cool to have anybody else doing anything, because his was, like I said, the only one that I could find online, because I'd done aquaponics stuff before and I'd grown these big tomatoes and all this other stuff. And it was encouraging that, because it made sense to me that it should work for growing cannabis, but everybody that I ever talked to, I'm half my family's from Humboldt, so I know a lot of growers.
Oh yeah.
And they all said, like, no, just don't do it. It's not worth it. Like, it's a terrible idea. But obviously I had my own plants in front of me, like we talked about earlier, right? There's no better measurement than your own plants that you grow yourself. I had my big ass tomatoes, and so I YouTubed it up, and boom, there's Silver Arm. Like, hey, I'm doing aquaponics. Here's my shit. I'm smoking it. It's decent, and it didn't cost me shit. So I was like, hey, I'll give it a shot. The rest is history. That was like, what, 5 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
right on.
Blowing up.
I'm still promoting. I love aquaponics. I think it's the best way anybody could do it. Like, you could grow your vegetables, fuck, smoke your cannabis, fucking even sell your stuff, your fish, your shrimp.
Yeah.
I like those guys with the idea with the aquaponics box. That's awesome. I love that.
Right on, man.
Right on. Mad respect, man.
Yeah, so that does bring up one more thing, I guess, I did mention about your guys' box too that I would look into is there's not really a good way to grow companion plants in it. So if you only have one plant in there, that would be when we talk about the nitrogen levels when you go into flower and wanting to bring those down. I like to use companion plants a lot. So I use like greens and stuff that will lower the nitrogen in the overall system. And your guys' is just what I can see here on your model here. There's really only that spot for the one plant, and not a great way to do that. So incorporating that larger grow bed like you guys talked about, I feel like might be at least adding that option into your current systems would be a great thing to do. So especially for cannabis growers, because you need that grow space to take up some leafy greens there on the bottom. At least for me personally, I think that'd be good for your model as well, trying to connect with the home user. They can grow some food, they can fix a problem and then eat it, right? They can lower the nitrogen in the system, turn it into lettuce, and then put it on their table, and that's a nice little marketing thing as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because we wanted to be headed, in both directions. Of course, we love the cannabis market, and obviously bringing aquaponics and produce into the home is another big goal of ours. So that's a great idea. Yeah, that'd be two birds in one stone.
Yes, it
Yeah, you
is.
could definitely put a couple net cups around the base of that and hang them in the fish tank and have a couple of the bait plants, or even just basil or thyme, or just usually someone's doing a pepper plant, they could have some herbs around it or whatever for the same footprint.
That'd be so cool. That would look cool too.
Yeah.
And it's healthier for people to smoke too. People are smoking a lot of stuff that's just nasty, and they're loving it, and they pay big money for that stuff. Just people don't clean it right or just don't do it right. It's
Probably
all
sell it with mold, mildew, or mites, or anything.
Dude, look at all these trichomes. Look at all these trichomes, man.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Speaking of trichomes.
So Infinitry, do you guys have any other questions for us, or any other, do you have any problems you guys are currently working on with your model, or different in development?
Well, you guys were honestly answering a lot of that. It's a lot of optimizations in terms of pH, nutrients, and then you have the grow bed and the LED, which you guys kill
every single aspect of the entire box. It was just scrutinized. Exactly what we wanted. Because you guys know more than anyone. So, yeah, exactly. It's exactly
invaluable.
Much appreciated. But there's one thing you did want to mention about the box.
Come closer. Yeah, you're flanging out, man. You're flanging out.
So there's one last thing we're gonna mention. Where if you even look on our website, you can see we're putting it front and center. But we're trying to create a community around aquaponics, and we're adding a feature to our app where you don't have to be a grower. You can just download our app as a client or a local, and basically look around your area and see what people are growing in their boxes. You can look through all their strains and all their produce, and you can basically reserve a harvest. And then when they're finished, they'll contact you, and then share, grow, and give. What be it, you can get connected with the best aquaponic produce right in your area. So we're really excited about that.
That's cool.
You're kind of like starting a co-op, so to speak.
Yeah, like an online co-op.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, we just really, I mean, we love the aquaponic message, and on the East Coast, people don't even know about it. Like, we can't even pitch it as an aquaponic grow box because people know it's aquaponics, and it takes so much time to even explain all the details of it and the cool aspects of it that basically we're trying to connect people in so they understand, the value of it and the organic nature of it versus, around here, and stuff that's coming out of Mexico that you're getting K2 sometimes. Like, it's not like out in California where, you can go directly to a dispensary and pick up exactly what you're looking for. So we're just trying to build a reliable, consistent access point for people who are looking for the right stuff.
Well, you guys have a relatively new market over there as well in terms of cannabis specifically, right? In the DC area, it hasn't been a long time, and you guys don't have all the advantages. But I mean, the West Coast has been producing cannabis and has infrastructure in place, all over the West Coast. So, I've made this point over and over again too in our podcast that as the market opens up on the East Coast, you're not going to have the same type of infrastructure to support growth like you did on the West Coast. Like, California going recreational is not going to have a problem meeting their demand. But I do have some concerns about Nevada meeting their demand, and maybe some of the other states that don't have, an infrastructure. Like, I have probably 10 different grow shops within 20 miles of me right here, but I have friends on the East Coast that, they're like, I have to drive 2 hours if I want to get to a grow shop. So just those little types of things I feel like are, might be challenges that consumers on the East Coast will face, and being able to produce your own meds and food at home obviously has a lot of appeal in that situation.
Yeah, totally.
So if I moved to the East Coast, I wouldn't want to buy weed. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's rough.
It just takes a little more networking than it does on the West Coast.
It's
It all
also
depends.
more
In the
expensive.
big cities, it's easier.
Really why.
More expensive in the East Coast.
Oh, yes, it is.
Well, we're trying to change that. We're trying to bring the West Coast vibe over here, and we actually, we have plans to get out to California. Not immediately, because we got to set everything up over here. But once the shop is running over in DC, we might pay you guys a visit.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting there. You guys don't they don't have any commercial market yet because Congress are being assholes and preventing you guys from growing. So it's all just home growers only right now. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, yeah, that's who we've been working with. A lot of people who've been doing home grows, and most of them have just been doing soil for over a decade now. And so we actually got to introduce a few of them to aquaponics for the first time. And our first guy is already fairly astounded with his results, and he's committed to, about 5 to 10 more units to replace his old grow systems with. So
He was doing soil.
Yeah.
So, which isn't.
So we had a question from chat. What strains have you guys run?
Yeah, what genetics have you guys have the best results with in your system, utilizing the aquaponics so far?
So, I mean, we haven't been able to do too wide of comparisons just because I'm actually originally from Maryland and Nate's from Virginia. So in our home states, we couldn't do much growing ourselves. So we were reliant on our customer base out of DC. But our first 3 grows were Northern Lights that we had obtained overseas, actually. And Now we're actually growing Master Kush and 4-way in our boxes in DC, and he's looking to also get, is it Girl Scout Cookie?
Girl Scout Cookie Extreme.
Yeah, Girl Scout Cookie Extreme and Blue Dream are the next ones up for the new boxes that we're moving in there.
Blue Dream. Yeah.
Hey, for the Master Kush you guys have right now, how far in are you? Have you flipped yet, or?
No, that one's only 3 weeks in. Yeah, fresh clone.
I think it's one Master Kush and one 4-way.
Yeah,
so they're growing together.
I got 2 Blue Dreams going now.
Yes.
That's some good stuff.
Yes.
So
Marty loves it too. Marty's especially fond of Blue Dream.
That's what he's smoking now.
Starfighter OG right now, actually.
Girl Scout cookies, really? Or you say animal?
Starfighter.
What did you? What?
I'm smoking Gold Leaf and OG Kush tonight.
I'm smoking Starfighter OG from last year's album.
Dude, you don't have enough there, man.
Some tangerine haze rosin. Totally solidness. Bubble hash to rosin.
Here's another jar.
Oh my god.
I'm smoking custom antler pipe. Sent to me by a friend out of Alaska.
There's some popcorn. That's just the little stuff, though.
Wow.
And then that's some more little stuff.
I'll show you some jars, but I live on the East Coast. So I'm not showing you my jars.
A little.
Oh, more popcorn over here.
Oh,
so
anyway, so let's, one more thing I want to touch on a little bit more about your light. You guys talked about the power consumption.
So some 73 micron bubble there.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Did you guys measure the actual power consumption of your light or your entire box at all?
Not like scientifically. I mean, the light is 250 watts by like straight wattage, so it's 200. We have a bunch of 3-watt LED diodes, and we're not running them at 3 watts obviously because that would destroy them. So it's a lot less. Right. But
your actual power consumption would probably be somewhere like, like 40% of that, right? 40 to 50%.
Yeah, 100, 120 watts, and then we have. I mean, we got pumps and we have fans and aquarium bubblers, but those use next to nothing. So it's the LED is probably the brunt. So probably around 150 watts, I would say, around there, give or take.
So that'd be a good indicator. One of the things that I feel like I track a lot around LED lights is the actual power consumption, and a lot of people will like calculate watts per square foot based on like you said, a 250 watt light, when really it's not ever a 250 watt light. And we try to encourage people to at least advertise what the light actually consumes. And we would encourage you to do the same thing with your product as well. As if it is not an actually 250 watt light, then just don't list it as that, and that will make a fair comparison, at least for and especially in the market that you're going after, because you're going after an end user who's probably not going to know any better and will get confused by that when trying to compare to a different light that advertises the actual wattage. So that would be another thing.
You're gonna want to, display like a PPFD or something like that as a better, or a PPF as a better way to display your light output. You'll get, more better feedback. I guess it's kind of the new standard, especially with Europe and Germany and stuff like that, kind of making a lot of newer lights, and some of the better lights in the market, such as some of the other people on the podcast tonight have, it's kind of a better way to put it out. They put a lot of stuff like that and a lot of good information. So maybe something to look into.
Yeah, or even maybe look into, some sort of Spectrum King light that would fit into your model as well. I know they have
all kinds of solutions.
Models as well. If you don't want to reinvent the wheel, you might want to take a look at some of the stuff that they've already done. And
they do all kinds of. And for those of you guys that don't know, Spectrum King doesn't just do the lights that they do. They make all kinds of cool tricked out lights for all different kinds of industries. I don't know. Do you guys want to take a second and speak on that? You guys are a very diversified company when it comes to lighting.
Spectrum King is the horticultural branch of the company. There's also Bright Light, which is the commercial side for everything else. And because we actually manufacture and design our own products, if you say, I want this color temperature at this kind of level of intensity, we'll bring meters in, measure what you have, then reproduce it with much more efficient and much more, power consumption is a big deal. For your system, you just need a kilowatt meter and a power strip to have the whole thing plugged in. You could say total consumption equals this, then each component at a time plug into the kilowatt meter. You'll say pump consumes this many watts, light consumes this many watts at full power, and then you're done. You're telling the truth, and you're showing actual consumption like you mentioned earlier, because a lot of LED companies just a few years ago used to have this stupid thing called LED watts, which is an absolute fictitious, flat out bullshit number, and it used to drive me nuts.
That's why
no such thing.
That's why we put 250, because everywhere we looked, it seemed like everyone was doing this LED wattage thing, and we were like,
yeah, and it's and some foreign manufacturers still use that because as a gimmick. What it actually pulls from the wall is what we advertise on our products and videos. RSK600 pulls 650 actual watts from the wall at full power. That's all people want to know, the actual consumption, and then like you measured about the output, be it in ppf, ppfd, lux, lumens, whatever you want to measure it in, so people have some frame of reference of how much light they're going to get with that much power.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's no wrong way to do it. As long as you're giving accurate, true information, that's all that counts.
Right.
It's in the lighting community, in the growing community, we've been bullshitted enough. So people really appreciate truth, and just show them the truth. Tell them the truth. That's all we do. We made enemies at first because other companies hated us for telling the truth. Well, guess what? We're still doing it, and some of them are gone. So, it is what it is, and I really appreciate the guys pointing that out, because they've seen the same thing in other facets of it. Pumps rated for this much power, and you plug it in, you go, wait a minute, that's not even close to the truth. How'd they get this through,
Right. And we get the same questions a lot as, people who operate on forums, and, we have the cannabis growers group, and, we get a lot of people asking us a lot of questions, and a lot of times those questions repeat over and over again, which is totally understandable because different people watch at different times and end up, having the same questions over and over again. But that's one of the ones, LED lighting comes up over and over again. And, I'll get a random link in my message box, and it'll be an $89 LED light off of eBay that says it consumes 5 bajillion watts, and it's the greatest thing ever, and is this going to be good? And I always end up having the answer in the same way. Like, well, that depends on your definition of good. By my definition of good, no, it's probably not. And it's, nowhere near to that number of watts. It's not a 600 watt light. It's probably more like, a 280 watt light. And you have to calculate based on the wattage that it actually consumes. And
we're talking about, Marty's talking about the company that is selling lamps for $70 on eBay. They call it a 300 and a 600. It's 140 and 278 watts, actually. Sorry.
I got a question for Spectrum King. What light do you suggest for an 8x8 room?
Well, what are you growing in the 8x8 room?
Cannabis.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
I grow cannabis.
Well,
I got the idea about growing vegetables, but I've never done that. I just done cannabis.
Okay. Well, now basically the 400 plus covers a 4x4, so 4 of those would do the whole room. The SK600 covers a 5x5, so either do a couple of light movers or just do the 400 pluses.
Okay.
Yeah.
If someone look into that, I might get a couple of that and try you guys out. I heard a lot of good things there, but I just got into LEDs and learning more about it, and I'm glad that you guys are here.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
what the LED?
Go ahead.
So light movers. So you like to promote the use of light movers with your lamps. That's interesting to people. I think that's what I just heard. And see, I'm a promoter of light movers, and I found that it works great. And second time I grew a plant that produced a pound indoors, it was using a light mover. So half the time the light wasn't over top of it. It liked the release from the heat and all. And I was running 1,000 watt Hortilux. Yeah. With a economy batwing that's real light, and running it on my 1,000 watt across the 8-foot grow, and
I think there's a strong argument for it not having static areas of shade as well, to where because it moves throughout the canopy, it doesn't have an area where that gets completely shaded 100% of the time. So at some angle, it gets hit by some shade of light, and I'm a strong believer in light movers for that.
Right, but there's definitely a Goldilocks zone. You know, you don't want to move too much because you move too much, you get too much stretch. You're going to prolong your cycle. You know, I've seen cycles go longer. You know, week and a half. So yeah, you want to be careful.
Can I just say that it really looks like Roger and Silverarm 32 look like they're sitting in the exact same room?
It does.
Like it looks like Roger's sitting right next to him.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry.
I got it set up. I got it.
I couldn't get over it.
So I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Infinitry. If you guys are looking for more information, we have all their social media information in there. Do you guys want to tell people how to find you?
Infinitry.org. Hit us up. We got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Pushing content. New YouTube video coming up. Maybe tomorrow, next day. We're gonna try to get just a steady stream. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for all your wisdom and experience that you shared with us. I mean, like Spectrum King, all you guys, we'd love to touch base and just keep learning from you guys.
Sure.
Yeah, I would highly recommend the Spectrum King's Grow Off content that they have already posted up on their YouTube. It's got a lot of good information along with it. You know, they walk you through it, the side by side, line everything out. They post updates consistently, like all the things that you would want to see in a side by side, with information about, you know, about lighting in general and why you're seeing what you're seeing throughout the grow. So kudos to you guys on doing that. Like I said, in our previous episodes of this podcast, you can find a lot of stuff about nutrients. Each one, we picked an episode for each one. For I believe until we did most of them, at least. I know we did all the main nutrients, and so I'm not sure if we ended up doing all of the micronutrients, but I know we got into like molybdenum and quite a few of them. Steve, do you remember? We did all of them?
No, we did everything. No, every single week. And I think it was like episode 12 or 10 or 12 we started that series, and then we went through all of them. But we did a different nutrient per episode.
Watch number one first.
Yeah, number one.
First 15 minutes. You'll learn all you want to learn about the dual root zone in the first 15 to 30 minutes of that video. Number one. And then skip to 12 so you can get to that.
No, watch them all. Don't skip it.
Yeah, watch them all.
And I've got I'm getting ready to, well, I had a problem. My network got hacked from somebody in Indonesia last month, but I've got a new online store that specializes in companies like yours. If you want to hook up sometime, you can check, you can get with Steve to get my email address.
Yeah, I'll share all the panel people's stuff. I'll make sure.
I might help you promote.
I wanted to ask Silverarm, what's new with him? We haven't had him on the show for, I don't know, quite a few weeks now. I'm happy to have him on the show, and I wanted to give him a little chance to talk. He's for those that don't know, he's been probably he is the oldest aquaponic cannabis YouTuber on the internet, and he's kind of the OG of aquaponic cannabis education on the internet. So thanks for joining us again. We've been in contact.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we've been in contact for a little while. You and I were kind of, talking different tips and stuff for a while before we I started my YouTube even.
You have me here. I've been trying to be here, just been working a lot, just trying to leave my work behind and start my own little greenhouse here in Michigan and grow my own cannabis. Maybe vegetables too, but more cannabis. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm working. That's why I just haven't had that much time to join you guys. And I love what you guys do and what aquaponics brings to the table. And just trying to promote aquaponics, show people that you could grow your own stuff, organic, clean, and with that, not that much into it. Just, in the first, get your lights, all your stuff, all your setup. And after that is just feed your fish and keep your ecosystem going. It's all about bacteria. Aquaponics is. and it's a whole living system. Sometimes my wife gets mad because I'm spend half of my day in the basement, but I say, hey, it's like a cat, like a dog. I said, it's a living system there. I gotta pay attention to it, and there's more time I put into it, the plants look greater, best. But
Nice.
the downside is that I work a lot, and it sucks.
TLC, baby, TLC. You give TLC, they'll treat you right back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
And
Keep 'em
the only thing I've been doing is just growing here and there when I have time. But most of the time, it's just I don't put that much time in aquaponics, and I'm getting older. It's time for me to retire my iron worker belt, put it and say screw it, and grow my own shit and do my own thing, my own boss. I'm getting tired of somebody else telling me what to do.
Well,
So you
but,
still actively
weld some custom aquaponics tanks.
excuse me?
I said, why don't you weld some custom hydroponics tanks?
I should. I got all the stuff at my welding. It's just the time. The time is. I've got to work all the time, and when I'm at home, it's just I got a list this big, and my wife's on it. But that'll be the plan. When I get more and decide just to hang my belt down in my hood and just be at home, I got a lot of ideas I want to put it into effect.
Nice.
But that's the plan so far. Hopefully it comes out, but we'll see.
Well, good luck, brother.
Yeah, good luck, brother.
Are you still actively posting on YouTube?
Yep. Every so often when I come home and I'll be laid off for 2 or 3 weeks before I gotta go back to work, and I'll do some videos, say hi to the girls, and spend time with my girls and post some videos. And I post all my, I don't just post all my good videos. I post like all my videos that I don't do good, so I can show people that mistakes and learn from my mistakes.
Yeah, nice.
I like that. That's how I built my reputation in the forum communities, by posting my failures as well, because that's how I tried to screw everything up so I could truly say I learned something from it. And that's why I teach people today, is because I've done it all the fucked up ways, and purposely messed up plants like that, like you say, and showed people my failure. And now they believe me when I tell them, well, if you do this, it'll be right. They believe me, and it took 12 years. I'm at 12 years in doing that. So I'm glad to hear somebody else with that same concept.
I think I don't think you can say that, like, if you're in this to teach people how to grow stuff, you can't teach them how to grow stuff without dealing with issues, right? Like dealing with your own fuck ups. Like, even if that's like showing people how to tear plants out and put in new ones, and when the best time is to do that, like, I just think that if you're going to teach them how to do any of it, you should be willing to show how you do all of it. Everybody fucks up. And if you're just going to not show it, then you're not really going to help the person that's watching on the other end. So.
And I show people too, I tell I started a couple friends that did a hydroponic. They grew some awesome girls hydroponic, but he loved the way the pot tasted. And to it, I showed him everything I could, and he has problems, but I tell him, hey, I could show you as much as I can, but you got to learn your own system, because it's a living system. So that's why I tell a lot of people it's a living system, and hey, you could teach it so much, learn from themselves, and they'll go by that.
So I'm curious, since we've been talking about the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you're like the first YouTuber, do you do fermenting and labs and stuff like that with your system?
No, not really. I don't have that much time. Like I said,
Okay,
I put like maybe 10 or 15% out of my time into it, and just try to learn more and more.
You pretty much did just fish food, if I remember right. So.
Yeah, fish food, brine shrimp, red, what is it? What the bloodworms, and
Yep. And you had Oscars, I believe, right? At least in your first grow, yeah.
And I'm the fish, because I Oscar had to jump and a couple times jump out of the tank. I had to stop and put a net on top of it and stop playing with them.
Yeah, my fish
But,
always think they're hungry. Like I could have fed them 10 minutes ago, and I walk in and they fill his thumb up. I'm like, ready to eat. Can't
But my
listen to
big
them.
plan is just to start get a bigger system. I want to grow my own fish. I love goldfish, but I want to grow my own fish that we eat. And I live in northern Michigan, and I want to look into the market around here, like the restaurants, what they're buying, and maybe go from there. Because like I promote people, you can sell your fish and eat it and grow your cannabis.
Catfish is a good option. I know that one of the local aquaponics farms here in Ashland does catfish and mostly microgreens and stuff, and he sells all of his stuff to local restaurants. So it might be a good option for you. Catfish is also relatively available in most states, whereas you don't have to get like a special license or anything. Or if you do, it's usually cheap. Like here in Oregon to do catfish, I think it's like $7 or something like that. It's pretty cheap.
Nice. I have to look into it some more.
Yeah, channel cats are good. So the last outdoor run I did with catfish. So you can check that out if you want to.
I've been told microgreens, if you want to get into trying to sell like a market of something that's very marketable, microgreens has been the thing people have been talking about for a while. You know, like if you ask anybody, what should I grow, you know, in order to have something substantial and perpetual, and they'll tell you microgreens. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Catfish and microgreens, yeah.
Well, it's hard to fuck up, that's for sure. I mean, you know, that's probably the biggest reason I think. It's like, you know, they're easy to sprout. They are not alive for very long. You can deliver them alive, and you know, in the right market, I think it's definitely good. And so, in this case, high-end restaurants, they want that's what they want. They want microgreens. They want it to be fresh and local and all of those, you know, good things. So
basil.
Yeah.
Basil.
You just gave a new market. You just opened up a new market, which I can't discuss totally, but yeah, so you're taking basically, you could start a slab of microgreens in Oasis or something like that and deliver that. And if you had a sustaining system, you could sell I'll spill it. I don't care if everybody wants, but right. All of a sudden you could get clients where you go to restaurants and you've got a little thing there that like an ebb and flow system that they just put on there that you just turn on like a timer, like a steamer, and it ebb and flows for them, and it keeps their microgreens alive after you bring them a slab, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I always thought it'd be cool because my front porch system, it's like, you know, 8 feet by, you know, 2 feet or something like that, and it's got a little trellis up on the back and it looks kind of cool. But it's a long, basically one long bed, and we call it the salad bar because we grow tomatoes and different stuff. And I always thought it'd be cool to have a restaurant that had a salad bar, like a living salad bar, like just in the top of a big tank where you could obviously just rotate them in from a big system out back. But I always thought that would be kind of a cool little, you know, trendy little thing to do.
It creates an awesome atmosphere too. Amy and I have talked about that for, you know, years since we got into hydroponics and greenhouse and all. And same thing. I really did. I wanted to have right here on the farm. I wanted to have a little like area or like a restaurant, like you said, where you had a greenhouse attached to it, a terrarium type situation, and have an aquaponic vegetable grow right there that people would know that when you ordered a salad, they go pick a tomato and a cucumber, you know, and onions or scallions or whatever, and then they chop it up at, you know, table side even, you know, it's really fancy. But I love that same idea. It's because everybody loves that anymore, isn't it? The way it is, fresh and, you know,
farm to table. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you could see the food was growing on the plant before they picked it, because all you gotta do is pick it and chop it, and you can eat that tomato right there. So, yeah, that's a lovely idea for a restaurant little thing. You know, that I love that same concept. Well, I love it even at my house.
So what's new over at Spectrum King? You guys got anything new you guys are cooking up, or any cool content you guys have released lately? What else is new with you guys?
Well, the remote power systems is something that we're working hard on. So you can, you know, the larger facilities can control sunrise, sunset, intensity levels, programming rooms if it's straight indoor or supplemental for greenhouses. You know, that's a big part of what we're doing. We had a lot of demand for it, and what we did, like anything else we do, we found there was a niche that people were not filling. So we nerded out and figured out ways to make all that stuff work. And it always took longer than we wanted to. And then as new products are being made, there's new diodes coming out that do better specific jobs. So then we're making new toys, as we call them, to test over live plants for the next generation of our products.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I always like the idea that you promote that like waking up in the morning to full light, to like calming down in the evening. See, that's what, I love that, because that's how I grow. I try to emulate everything in my growing to do that, like emulate nature. In fact, I've got a whole bunch of people growing 14-10 veg periods because we've been trying it and they've all been extremely happy. We don't veg longer than 14 or 15 hours, and then we drop it to 12 and when we want to flower it. And we've had really strong root zones, and I've got I was really surprised that I didn't get as much people, because I've been fighting my whole career about the 24-0 thing. You know, I don't want to talk about it. But because I'm a firm believer, being a USDA grower, that plants need rest. For there's reasons and things that happen with the plant. You know, we're not going to go sideways on all that photosynthesis right now. But the thing is I've actually got a bunch of people that tried it, and I haven't had one person come back and say, well, that was a waste of time, and I got scared. Everybody's had a grow in now, and I've got like 6 to 8 growers growing 14, 15 hours a day light. And so you could even do further if you had that, where you could come in slightly, you know, and then go full intense light, and then, you know, ease out of light. That'd be the same kind of way it promotes that natural kind of feeling. And I just think it's great because it works. And people aren't freaked out thinking, oh, I got to give it all this light. I'm going to grow this monster plant the first time. No, just let the plant, you know, grow the plant. Like, I love it that your concept about growing. You did everything you're doing because you want to grow the plant. You know, the plant's healthy, you don't fuck with it, right? I mean, when the plant's healthy, you know.
Yeah, because that's why we say plants don't lie, people do. That's what we
right.
The plant tells me what I need to know. If I'm doing it wrong, the plant will tell me.
I had a big argument on the forum the other day with a guy that said he was trying to preach the spectrums that were on the box, or like at the website.
Yeah.
And I basically schooled him on the fact that, well, I don't want to keep cussing. I've actually slipped a couple times tonight, and everybody's been pretty good. But I basically told him that he needed to learn real quick that that was marketing. And are you saying goodbye, Silverhand? Or are you just waving at me? Or you're the guy?
No.
With me?
You guys are in the same room almost.
I was rubbing your head. Looked like I was.
Well, I've been fighting, but the thing is I was getting at, they were talking about how the light spectrum proved how, well, actually, they talked trash about your company after I had mentioned them, and I stood up for you because you'd been on the show. I listened to what you guys had to say, as all we did on the panel, and we all thought you know, had a damn good argument and a good product. And then I try to, you know, so I've been talking to people like, I think it was something about what's the best LED, and I was basically promoting, well, they were talking about cob lights. It was a career citizen kind of thing. And then I mentioned you guys, and I mentioned Black Dog too, because they were on the show. And it wasn't, I didn't put any links up because I just didn't, because that's not what we do. But I have this guy comes back and he, you know, talks about how he builds his own lamps, and he does seem to know what he's doing and does have a nice looking setup. But you know, he was trying to promote what he was trying to sell was the spectrums on the marketing spectrums, like we've all talked about lying. And I told him, in fact, if you guys would, we brought this up a while back, Steve, maybe you could help me here. Who's the company that we just outright caught lying about their spectrums and lights on their?
Well, it wouldn't be hard to find them. There's a lot of companies that do that, flat out lie.
Well, so yeah, so it's funny that it was great that y'all are on tonight. I was glad to get to talk to you again for that. But it was because that was brought up to me in the forum, and the guy said, "Look, you can't go by the lamps. I mean, but when you buy a lamp or you go to the website and they show you the spectrum," I said, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the best spectrum for the plant, and it doesn't even, and it probably means that it's been enhanced, or in a lot of cases is an outright lie of what it'll actually produce. And if you test the lamp, like we talked about tonight, whether it be an HID lamp or the LED systems,
any light source.
Huh? Yes, you're going to find out that there's a lot of bullshit out there. And that's what I told him. And he fought with me a little bit, but I explained to him, hey, I've been hanging out with some guys and they've been explaining some things. And it turns out if you research what they tell you, it appears to be true. You know, so
the reason we brought a spectroradiometer out and took real measurements was we were tired of these guys in their creative storytelling when we knew that what they weren't telling the truth. And when we called them on it, you know, you take a measurement of a bulb at the bulb in a sphere, it's going to look, the numbers and readings are fantastic, but nothing's ever going to live there. So why don't you take the readings where the plants are supposed to be from that light source, regardless if it's a bulb, an LED, or anything else? So that's what we started doing that 3 years ago, and people told us we were idiots. We didn't know what we were talking about. There's full spectrum bulb, you know, it doesn't work. You have to have the right diodes. And I said, if we have to have the right diodes, tell me why these bulbs work, but they don't have the spectrums you guys keep pushing. Why is that? Why do bulbs still work if what you're telling me is so advanced science that it should be smacking the little crap out of them? And that's not the case.
No,
so
it's new science that doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work because it's not natural.
And you'll hear me say it all over the place. Plants go for intensity first, spectrum second. So if you're playing with a weird spectrum and it ends up being not intense enough, I don't care what marketing they put out there, you put that over a plant, you're going to be upset.
Or disappointed at least, right?
Yeah. So, you know, why not tell them the truth? If you say you have to have your light fixture 1 foot or 3 feet or 18 inches over a plant, that's where that reading should be taken from. That's what the plants actually see. So that's be what you advertise.
Right. And so, I've felt like that for a long time, and I feel like it's really highlighted in the, in a lot of the different white light, whether I talked about the CMH before, or that is that it just doesn't make mathematic sense that you could make up the difference, that the effect that the spectrum does have, even if it does have some, doesn't ever seem like it could catch up with the lack of efficiency that you have to start with. Like, it just seems to me percentage-wise, well, mathematically that doesn't work out, unless you're really exaggerating the amount of effect that the spectrum has.
One of the tests we did just 2 years ago, we showed that you can only get so many lumens per watt with red and blue, and a full spectrum white light, which has red and blue and every other color in it, gets 4 to 5 times more lumens per watt. Well, we still stand by plants go for intensity first, spectrum second. Right. So if I can give them more light and of a better quality, the plant tells me it likes it and gives me better results, as long as I keep my environmental variables in check. So now we know what the room environment has to be for cannabis. We know what the cannabis plant's looking for. It's not like some of us have been around the plant for a while. Not to date myself, but I was first, let's say, asked to leave a street corner by people with a badge in 1975 because I was already slinging on my bicycle as a paper boy. I've been around it for a long time, and everything I want to know, the plant's going to tell me as long as I pay attention to it. I don't need to tell any crappy stories or invent a new purple wheel or something. I get the plant, I study it, and when I see the terpene profile has been improved, the THC content's gone up, there's less stress, I know I'm onto something. You know, or Rami, myself, David, when we first started Spectrum King, everyone thought we were out of our effing heads. They said, you're idiots, you don't know what you're talking about. Now they're all copying full spectrum and saying they invented it 5 years ago, when just 2 or 3 years ago they told us we were idiots and didn't know what we were talking about. So
it's funny too, because you bring up the full spectrum, and that's what people, when they hear that, and when you keep saying white light, that loses some of these people. Then just now you went, which includes all of them.
Yeah, not just some of them. I can't have 7 different ones together and call it full spectrum. Thank you for pointing that out.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a really good explanation you need to keep pounding out there about that. It's not white light, but the full spectrum white light has all the spectrum in it, all the spectrums in it. So
and the diode itself, not
Yeah.
That when you take a bunch of different diodes, so just to clarify, if you have different color diodes to sort of band-aid together a full spectrum. So if you have some diodes for this part, and you have some diodes for this part, and some diodes for this part, that's not a full spectrum. That's
not it.
Not true.
Right.
So it's the white light that has the full spectrum.
Yeah.
But you say white light, and people just think, oh, it's just white light. How can it not? How can it do anything about red and blue? It has red and blue. That's why I wanted to jump in there on that.
It has all those shades of red and blue and everything else in there. And one of the reasons Fish Ganja guy pointed out that his lower buds were better under our lights than the other one is because full spectrum light, the green of full spectrum light is a transporter of red and blue light to the lower chloroplast of a plant. So whenever I see a colored light, I already know I won the test. Right. I'm just going to sit back and let it happen, but I already know I won because our light's going to penetrate that plant better because it has what the plant is used to getting to be penetrated with.
Well, can I ask you something? Wait a minute, Silverum, do you want to say something?
You always want to make sure your women, your girls are getting what they want to be penetrated with.
Yes.
Okay, here. Okay, so I was been wanting to ask you this tonight because I remember I was on the show when you were on before, and I basically sat and listened and enjoyed the information, which we're really getting right back into hashing out a lot of what you taught us that night. What I'd like to ask you now, though, is something else that brought up, because I don't recall this in your show. What is your perception on the concept of leaf surface temperature?
Okay, good point. And what I found, and when we're still studying, we're actually making some minor changes on next generation specifically for that, is that under bulbs, because the amount of infrared they're giving off and really far infrared that we can't see or quantize because no meter will measure it, you're getting, and what Steve mentioned earlier about the UV aspect also, when you have too much UVB, you're heating up that plant cuticle. And what we found is that there's a sweet spot, and how we were matching that was by raising the room temperature and the humidity level to get the VPD up. And when we found that sweet spot, if I had a guy who went to his grove and I said, listen, you tell me your room is 76 degrees. Here's the laser thermometer. I point at your plant canopy. What does that say? 97. That can't be right. It's too hot. Well, guess what? That's what your plant thinks it is. Your plant thinks it's 97 degrees. So how about this for me? Put my light over that, bring it up to 85 degrees, and let's see what happens. And the 78 degrees the AC had to fight to get down to because the plant is 97. With the LED, we have it up to 85, and I don't overheat the plant cuticle, so I'm stimulating it to produce all those compounds within it, not just chlorophyll A and B. There's a lot of other compounds happening. And because I'm not hitting it with too much, it's not wasting energy to heal and protect itself. And then when it develops trichomes, they're not being denatured by the excess of UV and IR. The plant does need some of that to stimulate it, but it's all about the dose and getting that part right. And when you get that part right, you do not overheat the plant cuticle. You can run your room hotter because the plant needs overall to be warmer to get that same effect that a bulb's getting you with your AC set at 75 or 78.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to bring that up earlier, and I think we found a perfect time to segue into that. Thanks a lot.
We actually had a question from chat. It said, because I asked, is there any questions for Spectrum King? And they said, well, more like an idea, just like sunlight passes through the clouds, would this help LEDs, like a fish tank lights on the outside, water fog should be cooler, I have to make it. So I don't know, do you guys want to talk about maybe your lights in a greenhouse application?
Yeah. What with the supplemental lighting greenhouses, I was in a bunch of greenhouses in Amsterdam, rather in Holland and Belgium recently on a trip because there was a conference over there, and we were listening to what European scholars have to say about light and plants and supplemental lighting for plants in greenhouses, because Europe's going greenhouse crazy because they pay so much for power. I was in a greenhouse, and I wish I was making this up, but I couldn't believe it. Basically a square mile, just about, a greenhouse, to give you an idea. Holland produces more tomatoes for export in Europe than flowers now.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
One big greenhouse or like a bunch of greenhouses?
Well, food production in urban areas, Europe's really crowded, is a really big deal. So they want to know the right combination of light and what dose it needs to be at their latitude to simulate this crop, that crop, that crop, and that crop. And they found a couple different light blends. And I listened to some of the things they said, and it was great because this one guy was really spouting 1970s, 1980s scientific thought as being rote. And this other scientist who was actually older than him said, hold that thought for a second, because, and before I could even open my mouth to counter him, he said everything I said, and I've been saying for years about plant and what they need and what differences you get. And he pointed out that plants do need UV and IR, but they don't need too much. Most greenhouses, the glass itself filters out the UV and IR, so the plants aren't actually getting it. The heat they're getting in the greenhouse is residual collective heat buildup of convection from the frame of the glass itself. So you need to actually reestablish some of the UV and IR on the inside, and with LED you can do that safely.
Cornholio.
Well, it was just a funny thing because they were all getting into it, and he said, by the way, you keep mentioning stuff that the plants don't even get inside a greenhouse from the sun.
I love your T-shirt, man. Sorry,
Appreciate it.
Cornholio.
He is the great
Cornholio. I need TV for my bunghole. Here, so this is that greenhouse. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Wow.
You guys see it?
Wow, that is awesome.
It's just absolutely ridiculously big.
And that's all tomatoes, huh?
All tomatoes.
All tomatoes, literally.
This is just a quarter of it.
Did you ever look around to be like, wow, just imagine if we replaced all of these with slightly different plants?
Well, as you know, the nutrient requirements for tomatoes is the same as tomatoes. So
that's right.
Yeah. Peppers, tomatoes, and cannabis, if you can grow either one of them, you'll be good at the other ones.
Yep, especially peppers.
Yeah,
I feel like peppers is a slightly more of a better allegory because it tends to behave a little more similar in like the calcium and mag uptake, whereas tomatoes don't seem to uptake quite as much CalMag. But
it's also advisable to run higher potassium on peppers than you do on tomatoes. So that's how, when I made my own formulas for my commercial greenhouse, and I didn't get to talk with you. I grow for Whole Foods. I used to. Well, I'm blind now, and I've been down for a couple of years. But I'm a USDA grower, grows for Whole Foods, and I grew habaneros for Whole Foods. Nice. And I make my own nutrients. I buy the bags from Southern Ag. Hey, Southern Ag, you've been great to me. They deliver you a truckload of stuff for like $20 because they do a truck route through all the farms. So you can order all your 50-pound bags and stuff, and they'll drop it off at your house at 6 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, every Wednesday, whenever you want something. So anyway, sorry, Steve, but they're great. Help out farmers. But making this to get, I found that the pepper formulas had the higher potassium, which is the same thought that I had for cannabis. So it's nice to hear you guys say that. Because we always say, well, just go down there and ask them what you need to do. Call your county agent and find out what you need to do for tomatoes. Like they said, what do I do outdoors to my soil in a certain area? Of course, we're getting way outside now of that. But all right, I digress.
I would say like the Humboldt area and this whole Southern Oregon, California thing. It's the sort of the running joke for decades now that you go into the grow shop and you tell them you're growing tomatoes. They're like, yeah, super awesome tomatoes. I'm sure you are.
That's how it was. That's how it was when I worked in the aquarium. I used to work in aquarium stores on the East Coast, and people always wanted like halides or high pressure sodium 1,000 watts at the pet store for their reef tank or for their tomatoes. And it was like, for your reef tank, you need 16 of these for your reef tank. I got you, brother. I got you.
Anything else related to fish tanks, right? Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. But even if you actually grew tomatoes and you went into a grow shop, I don't think they would believe you over here. You'd be like, oh yeah,
not
right.
Anymore. If you say you're growing tomatoes, they'll give you a sideways look, no doubt.
Yeah, they'll be like, right.
Well, I do know that
it all the time, but I smell like pot all the time. And sorry, go ahead, Roger.
All right, quickly, I'll yield. In hydroponic greenhouses, we have a propagation room, and it's usually 1,000-watt metal halide.
Yeah.
So you actually go down there. I go, I need 1,000-watt for my propagation room at my greenhouse because I've got a legitimate, commercial greenhouse. So it's but it's funny, I just had to throw that in because you're all saying all these excuses about people and whether they believe you or not. But I get the same. Believe me, I get the same looks in Redneck Central down here. You know, you guys talk about being in the East. I'm in the Southeast. Okay. You know.
I'm sorry.
Allegedly.
Right. Allegedly. And go on, Silverarm. What you want to say, man?
I'm good.
Well, come on, Silverarm, don't be shy. We want to hear what you have to say.
No, I was just reading the comments.
Oh, y'all.
What's up?
The panel comments.
We have to apologize to our guests because we have to apologize to our guests because our guests in our panel are playing around in the chat room behind the scenes, you know, and having a little giggle. You know. Our West Coast stoners over there. You know.
Yeah, we're a little more used to dealing with large quantities of pot on a regular basis than some of our brethren to the east.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's true. I think we're just, you know, I think we could just, we do, yeah, we do as much. And we grow as good as we want.
So we got Cornholio has returned.
Yes.
Cornholio.
That's why we love having you guys on the show. You guys are always great.
Hey, so does anybody want to talk about Jeff Sessions today? Anybody else check that out? Oh, look at the sideways look. I know he's yeah.
It's probably because he wants to use it for the news show on Monday instead of tonight.
No, go ahead.
Those of you guys haven't heard, Jeff Sessions again today tried to put forth a vote so that they could turn over the amendment that prevents the DEA or
the memo, the Garrett Cole memo,
from pursuing medical marijuana growers who are compliant with state laws. So he wanted to get rid of that, saying it's still Schedule 1, and you know, clearly we got to save it and go after the medical marijuana growers. And it got voted down, which I think is awesome. Obviously, it's great that happened. It still sucks that Sessions still holds any sort of public office at all whatsoever, and you know,
not only that, the racist elves are multiplying. Did you see that the governor of Maine is now calling on Jeff Sessions to help him overturn recreational cannabis in Maine? And this is okay. To put in reference, the governor of Maine said that drug dealers and gang members were coming up to rape white women in the state of Maine. Now, you tell me the racial connotations of the statement
it's
like
1927
that.
again.
Yeah, dude. And let me also remind everyone that Jeff Sessions was so racist that he was not allowed to be a federal judge during the Reagan administration, one of the most racist administrations we've ever had post-civil rights. I mean, this is the same people that passed the crack cocaine versus the crack versus cocaine
they were
laws.
like hard pass on Sessions. Like that, how hardcore do you have to be for those guys to be like, you know what, maybe not. So I definitely hear what you're saying there, but still to be pursuing that at this at
late
stage juncture with all the stuff that we have going on, for this to still be on his plea, I feel like clearly he has some sort of like vendetta against it.
And this is a great segue. So thankfully, there's a new lawsuit now, thanks to former members of the NFL, a 10-year-old girl, and a few other people that are now formally suing the DEA as well as the Department of Justice for scheduling cannabis as Schedule 1, despite the fact that it does not meet two of the three different requirements for Schedule 1. It has medical application, and it can be safely tested in a medical setting, which immediately disqualifies it from a Schedule 1. It immediately has to be Schedule 2.
But if they keep talking the other way and ignore the fact that it doesn't meet the prerequisites, they can keep pushing their agenda. Who's paying for their agenda? The Koch brothers and Big Pharma.
And the private prison industry, Geo Group.
All corporate, all big industry, because it goes from the paper companies and everything, the cotton, everything. Because when hemp comes legal, cotton's going to suffer.
Plastics,
paper's pulp and
oil.
Yeah, oil, big oil. I mean, this is going to overturn the wealth and the balance of nature we've seen it in the last 200 or 300 years. Yeah, big time if it ever happens. Yeah.
Well, I think that's why you get a lot of fronts for it to fight, right? You have, and I think Sessions is definitely connected to both pharma and prisons, but we know for a
And he's
fact
just
that
a racist piece of shit. Let's no mistake about it. He doesn't like anyone who's not white and from the South. He's like half admitted it before. Like, he's a piece of garbage. Again, this was a man that was so racist that Loretta Scott King had an angry letter that he wrote him that she read in testimony when he was trying to be a person in the 80s. This is all public knowledge. You can YouTube it. You know, this isn't even up for debate. This guy's a psychopath. And not only that, a racist psychopath. This is 2017. We don't have time for this shit. Fuck these kind of people. They should not at all be part of our government. They do not represent us. They do not represent the general population. People get the fuck out of office.
Yeah,
They're not going to go willingly.
No. Yeah, that's going to be.
I'd like to revisit the Maine thing, though. I want to say something about Maine, since we have a panelist that's not here right now that I know a lot about what he's been going through in Maine. One of the things that actually what you just said tonight is something that would make him licensed medical marijuana caregivers in Maine were screwed by the legalization of recreational in Maine, because it looked like they were going to trash them up, and now they're coming up with all these new rules and regulations they didn't have before. So actually, actually it might. I mean, okay, I'm sorry for all you people that don't have legal recreational marijuana, but the first thing that we care about is the medical marijuana, and that's it for me. I mean, the rest of us are outlaws, and that's the way it is. So I think that with that said, it would be a blessing possibly for the medical marijuana laws and the medical marijuana growers and caregivers that already had their businesses set up and were legal and paying their dues, so that they could provide for their patient, their whatever you call patients, or what's the word, Marty, Steve, somebody help me out. What's the word?
Caregiver.
Well, no, the caregiver helps who, though? The patient?
Right.
Well, I was right then. Okay. So you know, like, well, dummy, he doesn't make any bones about it. He was a caregiver, and now when they legalized the recreation, it was all up in the air, and they were going to take and limit to where he couldn't do the caregiving, much like, well, Marty knows all about being screwed out of being a caregiver, and his patients know even more what it's like to be screwed out of a caregiver that can bring them high quality medical.
Patients of
that's what I wanted to bring into the Maine story when you threw Maine into that last bit. I wanted to say that might be a good thing. That might be a good thing if it goes away in Maine because of the governor.
It follows all the other states. Like, all the other states have had their issues with it, where anytime you had medical marijuana and then recreational that followed, you have medical marijuana growers specifically getting screwed out of a lot of stuff, myself included. I can't
look at Washington. Washington is completely doesn't even have a medical marijuana program anymore, which is fucked.
Yeah, it just ruined the medical marijuana deal. I mean, it just screwed it up. So that's what I was getting at. That's my point.
Yeah.
Possibly that this governor knows what the hell he's doing. So let's not rail on the governor of Maine for wanting to go back on the recreational. It might save the medical marijuana and the caregivers in Maine.
But his statements dictate otherwise.
Huh?
The governor's statements dictate otherwise, that minorities and gangsters, I mean, come on.
It might be a side effect.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, but I mean, and you know what? This goes back to the original reason why cannabis is illegal in the first place, is because of racism. The very first reason why.
Corporate greed.
No. It was racism.
No,
the original time.
Absolutely.
It was racism because the originally it became illegal because there's a whole bunch of Mexicans moving up because Mexico had the little revolution, and a lot of people tried to flee the revolution in Mexico when they and there was kind of a despair there for a while because their economy kind of collapsed when they overthrew it. So they fled the U.S. just for economic reasons, and then the easiest way to target them was because of cannabis. So in order to kick Mexicans out of the country, they made cannabis illegal, and then they found out, oh well, it also happened to be pretty prominent throughout the slave population, ex-slave population. So they picked on on anyone that was a minority based on those reasons, and it was just, I mean, you can go look back, and then aside from that, the
William
DuPont
Randolph
company in
Hearst and all his cronies that were corporate that did it.
well, no, in 1933, the DuPont company figured out how to make petroleum-based plastics that could replace hemp, and then in 1934, the Marijuana Stamp Act came into effect, which allowed the federal government to make it illegal. So
that's where the DuPonts are from. You know,
I agree with both of you guys.
They're from South Carolina. The DuPont.
Can I say one nice thing? Can I say one nice thing about the DuPonts? Their tax haven is Longwood Gardens, and if you guys have never visited Longwood Gardens, definitely go check it out. It's honestly one of the best botanical gardens in the U.S. Not to defend the DuPont people, but it is a pretty cool public garden.
I was trying to say I agree with both of you guys, but I think the government just killed two birds with one stone. I agree with Steve that main reason it was because of racism, but it was they figured, hey, we could kill two birds with one stone. I said we could help these companies here that are helping the lobbyists and the president, everybody in the pocket. And the main reason it was racism, but it was like they killed 2 or 3 bones with one stone. That's what they did.
Yeah, or the chicken or the egg, right?
It was to get rid of hemp. It was to get rid of hemp so that the pulp and paper companies that William Randolph Hearst and all them, and all the pharmaceutical companies, of which marijuana was in 30% of our pharmaceutical drugs, when it was prohibited, it was not on racism. They used racism to fuel the marketing to get it banned and outlawed.
It looks like Silver Arm is yelling right now. I just want to say.
I agree.
Love you, Roger. Roger, come back. We love you.
I'm here.
I bet you got mad and just got out of the picture.
So I have a question. So as for the Spectrum King guys, what topics or what things in cannabis do you feel like aren't emphasized the most education-wise, or aren't emphasized enough in the market currently? Maybe, and that's totally wide open. It could be nutrients. It could be.
No, it's environmental variables for sure.
Yeah, 100% environment. 100%.
People do not understand the right conditions to grow in. That's why I keep talking about VPD and find other people's links and articles to explain it, so it starts to become a part of the conversation. Because the old boys club, 40% humidity. Yeah, you can grow. It's not called wheat without reason. It's going to grow, but to get the optimum, let's just think about where these plants came from. You know, it wasn't called Colombian gold, Panama red, Jamaican, Thai stick, all come from hot, humid environments. The UR sativas, that's where they excel.
Right.
You know, so if we're gonna teach people how to grow properly, my dumbest answer has always been, what's the longitude, latitude, what's the natural environment the plant comes from? I don't care if it's lemongrass or Thai stick. If you get the environment it comes from right, it's going to grow better, because that's what it, became.
And that's why you grow sativas. You can grow, guys in England grow sativas at 12-12 from start to finish. Because in equatorial regions where you get sativa or a haze, right? Haze also, I believe, it's 12-12 basically all year long, give or take a few minutes.
DJ Short, who's one of the better breeders from the beginning, he does 11-13. He always has.
Yeah.
In fact, that's something I teach in my classes, and I've read a couple of different studies on that and found that you get a better phenome expression and a better trichome expression and a better trichome diversity with an 11-13 versus a 12-12.
Yep.
Or even an 11.5, because that plant's cued into a half an hour to an hour difference because it's an equatorial strain. Almost all cannabis evolved between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So what's it going to evolve to cue in on? A half an hour to an hour difference. So that 11-13, pushing it to the far end of that, is going to give you exactly what it's going to be without giving it any extra light or without cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Yep.
One of the main things why people go to 40% humidity, 45% humidity is because they're scared of PM. They're like, oh, if I keep it at this humidity, I'm never going to get PM. Bullshit. You can still get PM.
Well, you haven't done it long enough.
Well, not even that.
Like, obviously.
Not even that.
Yeah, you just haven't done it long enough. If you've done it long enough, eventually and you don't have the right environmental conditions, I mean, obviously it takes more than one thing, but it's not like some magic thing that once you get below that magic humidity number, it just doesn't exist anymore.
No,
I feel like it's how it gets communicated. But I do got to interject because I got to take off, guys.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to Spectrum King. Like, congrats on winning the side-by-side, hands down across the board with everything. So I just want to make sure and say that again. And for coming on the show, you guys have been great. So thanks for that. Roger, Silver Arm, great to see you guys.
Marty, good night, buddy.
Have a good one.
Marty.
Good night.
Night, Marty. Be sure to check his YouTube channel, AP Meds, and his Patreon, AP Meds.
Cool.
See if I can remember what the question I was going to ask you. I had a Spectrum Queen question. What were you guys just talking about? Sorry, a little too much weed.
The location of where plants come from. We were speaking sativas and like DGA shorts.
Oh yeah. On the 11 to 13. That's something I've been preaching for quite a while, and I read a couple of different studies on the gene expression. Or there's two really cool studies out on gene expression, specifically in regards to terpene and terpene production and terpene diversity, and they found that there was quite a big boost on that 11-13.
Isn't that special? Been fighting people for years talking about this for about 5, 6, 7 years, and now here we have a panel of people I think are pretty damn smart and know what they're talking about growing cannabis, and here we are talking about growing no longer than 14 and all the way down to 11 hours. And well, actually, it's all about the darkness, really. It's more about going from 10 hours of darkness to 13 hours of darkness.
Actually, Spectrum King guys could probably talk about that a little bit better than I could. Do you guys want to touch on how the plants can only detect how long the light's off versus how long it's on because of the buildup? I forget what the name of the hormone is. Do you remember off the top of your head?
Well, I don't remember the hormone, but I know I'm pretty sure it takes 4 hours for a plant to wake up, and it takes 4 hours for a plant to go to sleep. So that's why the dark period, obviously is more important. And with a certain spectrum, you can get the plant to sleep quicker, to sleep pretty much within 15 minutes and go and wake up within 15 minutes.
And that's with the far red, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. We are working on lights that are pretty much going to be supplemental to our lights for waking up, for bookends, for pretty much putting them to sleep.
That's cool. I love that. That's really cool.
And then the cool thing about those is they only really need to be on a few minutes before and after the lights kick on.
Right. And it's only 100 watts a piece. So you're obviously one of the people I'd like to get testing this and verify if it shortens the cycle.
Well, I have used some supplemental red LEDs before so when I originally started doing LEDs, I originally started off with the coral reef stuff, and then obviously I was growing on the side, and I experimented with that, and then someone had turned me onto that actually. I forget what the name of the company is when I was working at the aquaponics source, but someone introduced the concept to me about the red LEDs, and we ended up building a couple of ones, and I've definitely had a lot of good luck and noticed a difference. In fact, even the ability to turn the lights on an extra 15 to 30 minutes past what you'd normally be able to, and still having them shut off and get the same kind of sleep time. Which was kind of cool because it doesn't sound like much, an extra 15 to 30 minutes, but when you're talking about the course of an 8-week flower cycle, that's all a couple extra days worth of growth at the end. So
there's an experiment going on right now where the guy's literally 12 hours on, 3 hours off with the deep reds, and he's saying he's actually cutting those extra 9 hours of sleep off every single day of his cycle, so his cycle's a week and a half shorter.
Wow.
And I want to see more on that because, conceptually I get it, but I haven't done it myself, but I want to see more about that. But it is very interesting.
So he's just blasting him with far red all the way through sleep cycle?
To put him to sleep, yeah. No, to put him to sleep, to keep him calm right away. And since you've calmed them down, instead of 2 hours to totally go to sleep, they're to sleep in 15 minutes, so there's an hour and 45 minutes saved.
Okay. But my thing is that you don't need that long of far red. You only need 15 minutes of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And once they absorb it, it'll naturally happen after that.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's just like it has in nature. You know, you have the sunrise and sunset that is that far red wavelength.
It's just like when you go to sleep, right? You know, the second the sun goes down, you get a little bit tired. Just like same thing in the morning. The sun comes up, you naturally wake up. Better get those black curtains, blackout curtains.
The ocean comes in, the ocean goes out. How does it work?
Yeah, right.
I wanted to add something to the earlier part when we were talking 1113 on the terpenes and all. And one thing that was left out of what you said, because why and this and that, let's not forget the shorter photo periods. Now we're starting to get away from the most optimum, but 11 would be right on starting to head that way for root production, because root production is strongest probably, well, between 12 and 14, like 10 to, all right, so let me go backwards, 10 to 13. So 11, 13, that might be what it is. It's right there in that area where it's been proven that root production is the strongest and most vigorous, with at least 10 hours of darkness and up to 13 hours of darkness. And that's something I've been preaching a long time. And now that I'm sitting here hearing you guys describe your photo periods that you're you know, and we're all kind of in agreement that shorter photo periods might be, you know, is cool. Or the way to do, instead of like, now I am old school and with some of the 40% or whatever, but I also understand that the cannabis plant adapts. And so that's something we leave out. We keep talking about science and this and that, and we're so smart. But you know what? It's the cannabis plant that makes us all smart, because it adapts to basically whatever we do to it. It'll grow no matter what you do to it, you know. So, but it's nice when you can get a panel of people together and that consistently come up with at least a somewhat streamlined idea of this is really what works. I mean, there's a reason why it works, and we've proven it works. And again, you go back to, you have to use the old school stuff, like the root production is the strongest, you know, between 10 hours of darkness and 13 hours of darkness. So when you're talking about those 11, 13, I love it on the sativas. It gives you something else to go talk to the guys about on the forum, you know, that, you know, like to do that shit, because they're always going, how do I get my sativa to finish? You know, it's getting too big. Just cut it. Or, you know, I was taught that by guys in England, because in England they love sativas. I mean, I don't know what it is. But they just love sativas. That's all they want to grow, and they get some crazy strains. I've got some, been gifted seeds from Thailand and stuff that came from Thailand and shit like that, and places that through England that a guy that I worked with gave to me, and he taught me. He grows in a 6-liter pot from start to finish with a sativa, and you know he gets a really, but he can grow a whole bunch of them, and the plant finishes in 110 days. A sativa finished from start to finish, because the smaller pot, you know, and you know, again, I'm getting off from the lights, you know, but I mean, the show's not all just about the lights, but with the lights and the light photo periods coming into play, I just thought I'd share that story, that, you know, you get a 2 or 3 gallon pot and you shorten the photo period with sativas, you can get a fully blown, super high quality sativa in 3 to 4 months instead of 5 or 6 months, because I think we all agree here we grow until it's finished, right?
Yep.
Sorry, I put everybody to sleep.
The only exception, yeah. Sometimes if for CBD production you cut them a little early, but. Yeah, so definitely we had one or two other questions from chat. Let me look here. Go back. So Guy 420 asks, I'm thinking of feeding my fish rabbit droppings, as I use rabbit droppings as one of my main soil amendments. It works well. How do you feel about using it as a fish food? So my advice to you is don't use any mammal any mammal waste into the system, because it can generate, you know, can introduce pathogens, because they are warmer bodied and can transfer microbes that cannot necessarily be good. So I would avoid putting any mammalian things unless they're in the form of compost tea or you know, some kind of composted amendment that can kind of get rid of any nasty pathogens that you might potentially introduce to your system. And then we had one or two other questions. What else is new with you, Silver Arm? Any other videos or anything?
Oh, no, not really. I'm just waiting for my grow to be done. I got one more week. I'm not gonna have the biggest buds this time around, but I did a lot of changes, and the lights was the issue. Just working with different lights, and I had mishaps. Lost most of my water, and when you lose most of your water, you gotta start almost fresh again. Cycle your water because it's all about bacteria that we grow, and start fresh again. And just happened twice. And made my light. Try making my first LED light this time, and I don't know that much about it. I just experimented. I'm the guys that like to do my own stuff and try it by my own, but learning, and this show was pretty good with this guy Spectrum King, learning about more of the lights, and I'm pretty interested and learn a lot.
Have you do you use any microbial inoculants at all with your system when you're restarting?
No. I tried a little bit the first time, or not, third time that I did this, then I'm one of those guys that just don't have that much time. Sometimes I just go by it.
I'm a big fan of Recharge and Mammoth P, both of those, especially in conjunction with one another when you're trying to reseed the microbials in your stuff. They work really well.
I have to check into it more. It's like I know I use add all the amendments that I need sometimes just to make it more, my parts per million get higher. But just kind of working it little by little when I have time.
You'll have more time when you said you're retiring, right? Once you retire, you'll have more time to dial in and
get 15
some more stuff
before I
done.
retire. I got to be 62 before I retire. And I'm just 40 years old right now. When I got in this local, I'm Unit 9 worker. It was 30 and out. I could retire at 55, but after shit went down, they took the retirement, and all this shit went down, and we lost the 30 and out. Now we got to retire until 64 or 62. But I want to make it before that. I said, fuck it, saving some money and starting my own business.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, I meant when you start your own business, you'll be able to create more time to dial in some more new ideas in your grow. I misspoke. Yes, okay, cool.
Yeah, I got a lot of ideas. I write a bunch of ideas that I've been having for years, like everybody does. That person that wants to start business, they come out with ideas and write them so you won't forget, and make them better.
Awesome. What about you guys over at Spectrum King? You guys got any new video series or any video content you guys have been working on over there?
Well, we're trying to teach people a simple do you know stuff, because we're so surprised that as much videos out there and much information is out there, there's still people following bad formulas, what I used to refer to as the buddy says syndrome. They have a buddy who says this is how you do it, and they do it like that. Even though they train record, get crap results, they take that person's word as rote. Well, I try to dispel the myths and show them the facts behind things, and hopefully get them to look at things a different way, to open up their own minds. Because the only way we're going to go forward is with these new ideas and people actually studying what plants say, not what their buddy says. So I'm all for more plant research and things that move things forward.
Yeah.
Like that device you said, that basically scanning a plant in real time for mineral deficiencies. That's definitely a big part of our future. For the formula down to cleanly and efficiently separate terpenes from THC is going to make a gazillion dollars, because they'll be able to formulate the specific compound blend for each specific disease. It's crazy.
Yep, and for those of you wondering what he's talking about, there's actually I did a video on my YouTube channel, but there's a group called the Profit Project, and I've been working with them at the farm over at Ouroboros, and they have a set of camera arrays that are mounted up in the greenhouse, and they actively scan every 15 seconds the plants in the greenhouse, and they photograph it with different light spectrum so that they can do on-the-fly tissue analysis based on light spectrum and give them on real-time nutrient values of those plant tissue so that they can adjust for nutrient deficiencies well before they ever show up visually on the plant.
So you're going to do like
pretty advanced
spectrometers? Are they going to use a spectrometer or what?
So it uses just different light spectrums.
Well,
no, but I mean when they run in and measure you said they're going to put the light spectrum on them and then immediately test them. They're going to do that with a refractometer or?
No. How it works is there's a camera that photographs the plant material, but it uses different light spectrum filters, which has different penetration through the plant tissue, which depending on how the light reflects back, they can compare that to a known database. And now you will get some diversity like we were talking about before the show. You'll get some diversity between strains. You'll also get some diversity, especially when they come late in the flower, because when those plants are turning their fall colors and stuff like that, it's going to kind of read that as a deficiency rather than the plant finishing off. So it takes some adjustments and stuff compared to the vegetables that it's being currently tested with. But it's going to be a cool test platform to work with with cannabis.
That's pretty awesome.
It'll be neat to know what's going on in the plants before they ever show you that something's wrong.
I think a whole lot of myths and rumors are going to go to the roadside at that point because the old buddy says syndromes are be like, dude, you were wrong.
Yep.
And I just want people to be successful whenever they grow. I don't care if it's lemongrass, peppers. Like I said, I just want people to be able to grow healthy plants without cheating with chemicals and other stuff like we talked about when you came by the shop that time. I can hope for that all day long, and we're trying to do something. Spectrum King with the guys, we're trying to do something which promotes healthier plants. Healthier plants don't need as much pesticides and everything else.
Right.
And, so my plant problems are just that, my plant problems, because I'm too busy. I can totally identify with being busy. Anyone who's met me knows I keep ridiculous hours. It would probably kill me, but I'm going to keep going until it does.
Yeah, because you're not just a light guy. That's what I love about you, man. You're just not a light guy. You're not coming there to preach. Now, when you start talking about, measuring, all the different experiments and you prove that it's not about that. You're just not a light company. You guys are way beyond the light company.
If someone wants to be that one-sided, that's their choice. They can choose that. Our mission is literally to replace bulbs and teach people to grow healthier plants. Regardless, obviously, I'm kind of partial to cannabis, even though I'm not a total lightweight, and I'm okay with that. I've seen what negative medicine's done in my own life and my own illnesses and things I've been through, which is a really long list. I'm not getting into. The only thing that brought me back from the dark side was one plant we all know and love.
That's right.
Good enough for me. It's good enough for a lot of people. It saved a lot of people from a lot of bad things. It helps a lot of people with a lot of bad conditions. We need to take our own power back, and that means not shutting up when the right wing goes fanatical on us like they're doing. It means stepping forward and putting yourself in the rifle scope, but telling the truth.
Here we are.
That's what we have to do. That's what we have to be.
Especially right now with Sessions, secretly working behind closed doors, trying to pull a bunch of bullshit right now, which we reported on Monday.
Yeah.
I don't think the government's going to. It's not going. He's not going to be able to do it. I don't think he's going to be. We keep reading stuff every day. I don't think he's going to be able to succeed. This is really a weird time in politics.
30 states legal, and now he's trying to kick it backwards.
Yeah, it's just. But I just don't see.
No. So it's actually 44 if you count states that have CBD only laws.
Yeah,
that'd be ours. They'd be Carolina CBD oil, because it became
even Mississippi. Even Mississippi, the most conservative voting state in the country, has a CBD law.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. That was Cornholio from afar, if you heard that.
Yeah, that was funny.
So, I appreciate that we have a platform to share the ideas and information because we don't have to hide in the dark ages anymore. But it's on us going forward to not allow these people to get back in power again, because obviously they're puppets and obviously they're bought and paid for. We need them out of our lives.
Absolutely.
Yep, I agree.
You know, I'm originally from New York, and I cannot believe in any way, shape, or form that's the Shrumpkin Pumpkin got into the White House. Even as an invited guest, I can't believe how fool got there. But that's
I know.
You know,
Yeah,
we need
it's
freedom.
insane. It's totally insane that the
well,
that Oompa Loompa got elected.
but that's on a lot of us who didn't vote. You know, I know people who didn't vote because they couldn't pick. I said, you got to pick the lesser of the two evils, and you have to pick something. No voting is voting for the wrong guy.
Yep.
So
That's true. That's
we can
true.
point the fingers at other people, but we got to look at our own friends and family and go, what did you do? You know, besides bitch about it. If you did something constructive about it, then more power to you. But most people just bitched about it and didn't vote because they didn't think it would. They thought it was a done foregone conclusion. Well, obviously it wasn't.
Or they voted by fear, fucking,
Yep.
because that thing that he used fear on people. You know, they use about fucking built the wall and
Yeah,
they're taking our jobs.
Well, that's always been the right thing has always been to promote fear. That's how they can social control mechanism. That's nothing new there.
There's a lot of
That started when the evangelical overthrew the right in the 70s.
The teabaggers.
And even Trump didn't think he was going to win.
Even he didn't think.
He didn't want to win. He just wanted to be Trump doing what Trump does.
The thing is,
basically annihilate the Republican Party, and now God help us.
He didn't win. That's the part that bothers me most. He actually lost the popular election. We have to get rid of the Electoral College. And then we would have had,
yes.
You know?
Yeah, I didn't agree with that.
Vote for a vote.
What we need is a parliamentary system where it's based on percentages, so that Congress, if it's 7% Green Party, there's 7% of Congress is the Green Party, or whatever, so that the toxic part of it is the two-party system. The two-party system needs to break if America's going to survive.
And the Electoral College combined stagnate the entire political process here.
The Electoral College is there to perpetuate the two-party system.
Well, you get rid of the two parties, Electoral College, and you put 2-term limits on every single office.
Yep.
That way they can't be in it. No one was ever supposed to be a career politician. That's not what was written in the Constitution. Look at it. You're supposed to serve your country, in the military, and then go back to work.
And term limits for Supreme Court. That is so long overdue.
Oh yeah.
I agree. Yeah, that's a cool idea too. Good luck.
That is just absolutely ridiculous. Individual presidents have way too much power when it comes to court appointments, and that there needs to be like an 8-year. I'm cool with an 8-year, or a 4-year, Supreme Court thing. But we need a turnover because, well, not only that, look at someone like John McCain or some of the other people. They don't even know what the hell an email is. And how are they supposed to make regulatory decisions on this stuff? They don't. They just believe whatever the lobbyists are. And I'm not meaning to pick on him or whatever. He's an awesome war hero or whatever, and fought for our country and is, I think, one of the only remaining World War II veterans. So props to him for that. But
McCain is not a World War II veteran. He's a Vietnam vet.
Vietnam veteran. I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
Yeah, he's a war hero. He was a prisoner of war.
Absolutely. And you know what? He got tortured and all kinds of stuff, and still kept his honor towards America. So props to him. But you don't see politicians like that anymore. They're all just a bunch of Ivy League people that rose to power. They're not. You don't see military people like him that's why I was bringing him up specifically. You don't see people with his level of integrity anymore, and that's half the reason why things got to the way it is now.
When was the last military president?
A really long time ago.
Eisenhower. Eisenhower said what in 1956?
No. Kennedy was a war hero.
No, he was a Navy man. He wasn't an actual general.
He was still
in the service. He was still in the service.
He served. Yeah.
He had a PT boat, and they wrecked the Pacific, and he got his guys onto the island and saved their lives and shit. No, Kennedy was a big time.
So Obama didn't. Bush Jr. got out of it.
He was National Guard.
What was Bush Sr.? I think
Reagan was a hero in the movie.
Yeah. So Bush Senior was, and then you got Reagan was an actor, and then
Bush Senior was the head of CIA.
Yeah, but he was.
Well, no. But before that, he was a pilot.
He was shot down.
Gerald Ford was a pilot, even though he inherited the presidency. Gerald Ford was a Navy pilot that flew into war. He was actually president, so that counts.
The only person to ever be elected. Yep.
I like you, man.
He fell down better than anybody.
Yeah. It was a trip. He was a good man. He had his good points.
No, he was definitely a good guy. But what I was trying to point out was that just the past 20 years, things have changed drastically on who gets to power. The whole system's changed and been corrupted. And it started with Eisenhower saying clearly, beware of the military-industrial complex, because the big corporations were already lobbying and taking over parts of government.
Absolutely.
It's on us. We are responsible for changing it. They're not going to let us. They're not going to go quietly.
Politicians are a renewable resource. If you vote them out, you vote them. If they don't do what you want, vote them out, people.
Yeah. Well, not only that. Look at the implications. Look at the implications it's had on the U.S. As far as law enforcement. They went to a lot of these guys went to Iraq, Afghanistan, and came back and ended up as police officers. And no one had ever actually given them proper
killing kids.
Mental treatment, and now they're trigger happy and they're shooting people. I'm not saying that. I don't even mean to imply that they're veterans, but I'm saying what happened was they had this big war and they produced too many weapons. They produced all these automatic guns, all these armored vehicles, all this stuff, and they had a huge surplus. So what happened? George Bush allowed the sale of all of those toys to law enforcement, which was ridiculous after 9/11, which they have no right to do. You know what? We have the army. There's National Guard throughout the U.S. for that kind of stuff. We have a law enforcement division for that. It's called the National Guard.
Good point.
That's exactly what the fuck they're for.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones that get to have the heavy military weaponry and all the stuff. Not the police. The police have no right to have that. That's the problem. The George Bush militarized the police with all the toys from Iraq and Afghanistan. That's kind of what I meant. I didn't mean necessarily, I kind of worded that wrong in the beginning, but no, I just a little bit unclear. One too many bong rips, but
the problem with a political debate is it's going to go around and around. It can't. We're not going to solve the world's ails tonight. And
no, that's the reason why you're seeing these shootings. I mean, you have that guy shooting that poor lady from Australia just because she put her hand on the car. Like, what is that about?
Well, just like the cops stop shooting.
Okay, let's not get that sideways. Come on, let's not.
No, we're not going that far down. But the problem is, it's unease and psychological pressure is what push people towards negative actions. We're living in a much pressured society because only the rich are getting richer and everyone else is suffering. So you're going to see a lot more negative behavior before you see it get better.
We're not only suffering, we're living by their new archaic, stupid fucking laws all the time.
And then we have
1 minute it's kind of cool, and then wait a minute, we won. Oh, what? What?
Well, we have a government that should have never got. The current leader should have never gotten into power, and then how he's treated both the Department of Justice, the Department of State, and all these other things. He hasn't. We still hasn't appointed 670 different appointments that he should have filled by now. Like, it's insane. And then there's something like 3,000 court appointments for federal judges that have remained void. It's insane. Why can't we put in some kind of thing where you're void office if you don't fulfill your basic duties after 6 months? Like, why is this hard? I can't. Let me give you this example. I can't show up to my job and then just not do 2/3 of my fucking job and then get a paycheck. It doesn't work. I'll get fired. I mean, maybe not because I own my own company, but anyone else in a normal job wouldn't work. So why is this douchebag getting passed? And same thing for Congress.
Yep.
So
that's why I said 2-term limits for all politicians.
Exactly. And do you have anything going on? Do you have a personal grow at all? Do you have anything going on there, Brandon?
We do have a small grow of our own. I mess around with strains. Last time I messed around with too many.
What are you growing currently?
1 second, I'm chewing something.
No worries.
Right now we have 3 strains out there. Last time I had 7. It was a bit much. You know, seven strains in a 4-light room is probably ridiculous, and it was. But I had my hands on some old land races I was trying to get going. I had a wild Brazilian that hermied out. Had a Thai stick plant that was absolutely huge. It got so big I transplanted it outdoors and finished it outdoors because it was just too big for inside. Even with me super cropping it and training it outwards, it still was 7 feet tall.
Holy fuck.
That's crazy. Was that a long flower time or?
Yes, it's like an 11-weeker.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of time to do it, so I know I'm very curious to letting things go wrong so I can then teach people how to go right. And I heard that mentioned earlier a couple of times by Roger that you have to mess up and show people you did, just like Silverarm said that it's never perfect every time. The guys who claim it are spend a lot of full-time job doing it. That's the only way you can be perfect every time is if you're in your garden every day like a regular job.
Or they're full of shit.
That's something that I hear a lot. In fact, I've even heard this from commercial growers. They're only checking on their rooms every 2, 3, 4 days. What the fuck is wrong with you? No, your eyes need to be in front of your plants every 24 hours. If you're not, you're doing it wrong.
When the lights come on, you should be.
People don't know either that if you do any changes in your room, any changes will create a lot of stuff.
Yep.
A lot of stuff will change. Just one
snowball effect if you did it wrong. Yep.
So
you'd be amazed. I had a commercial grower the other day tell me he shows up to his aquaponics farm like only twice a week, and I'm like, so what the hell happens the rest of the week? Like, what the hell?
Well, if you can automate it to that point, it's great for you. But I've never seen it that way. Even with automate, I still have to see what's going on.
That's what I want to do. That's my idea. I wanted to automate it. Because I got a small room in the basement. I want to automate it so when I go out to work, I could check it with my phone, have it camera. So I want to have sensors to check all my potassium, all my amendments I need. So if anything that has it, I'm going to have it so it doses it up too. I'm working on it little by little. I got a bunch of circuit boards wired and stuff, but I'm just learning by YouTubes and trying to do it. It's on the works, but it's an idea, but I think it's a big step.
Well, you'll get it, man. I'm hoping if you want to do it, you will do it.
Yeah.
So we had a question from chat. Ryan asks, in veg and flower, how high should my nitrates go? So in veg, you want to aim for 80 to 100 nitrates parts per million, and then in flower, you're looking like 30 to 40 parts per million in your water column in an aquaponic system, assuming you're doing dual root zone. So I hope that helps you.
And that's where Marty's talking about, like you might use companion plants that you could like microgreens and stuff to suck some of that nitrogen out to make it easier to reach that value. Isn't that what you were talking about? They were talking about earlier.
You just feed your fish more. So, and also, remember that protein is converted much more into nitrogen than, plant material. So in flour, you always want to feed in more vegetable material than you would protein. So less pelletized feed and less insect feed and more plant-based feeds, such as leaf scraps and lettuce and spinach and things like that. Pineapple are all good options to basically cut your regular feed in half. But kind of alternate between the two to increase your phosphorus production coming back out the other end of the fish, and which will help with branching in your flower production, as well as reduce that nitrogen back, so you're not getting larvae or overly small buds.
Yeah, because you never want to totally sacrifice nitrogen.
Yep. So, All right, we're getting kind of long here, so do you guys want to plug your different things, and we'll start to we'll wrap everything up.
Wrap it up for me. I'm trying not to let my nose run down my face right now. Apparently, I'm having allergies.
Why don't you tell people how to find you and how to follow your content?
SpectrumKingLED.com. YouTube, just type in Spectrum King LED. Instagram, Facebook, everywhere else, it's pretty much that. We're Spectrum King LED. Any question, comment, concern, good or bad or ugly, we take them all, we listen, because I figure the only way for us to improve is to know everyone's opinion. Even the ones that create not so true stories, we still want to hear them. So the success is always better, and that's what we go with.
We've had some pretty funny rumors that we've ended up with on the show. We had someone ask about mammoth pee being derived from human enzymes, which I thought was a pretty hysterical.
Well, if you have a predisposition to paranoia and you smoke the certain types of sativas, I can see that idea coming into somebody's head. You know, but
immature sativas and without being flushed well. Yes.
Boom.
Anxiety. Woo.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on. I thought it'd be fun to surprise Fish Ganja Guy, have you guys on since he was doing the announcement, and have you guys on to talk about it and talk about your lights again. And you guys are such a great guest last time. Actually, I went back and looked. I think it was episode 38, not 46. So I do apologize. It's episode 38 if you guys want to go back and check and watch it. I got the number totally wrong. So I wanted to go back and make sure I got that right and plugged you guys properly.
Thank you. You know, if any other guys want to get a hold of us, just feel free to have our info.
Sure.
I'd be curious to see how those guys from, what was it? The .org.
Infinitry.
Infinitry. I was going to stutter and say it wrong. Curious to see how they come along and if they develop those next steps forward, because you guys launched a lot of really good ideas to them.
Yep.
And let's see if they land, you know?
So did you. And that's... even shared your own technology or ideas to them, which
talk to them about light sources and things. You know, and if someone's willing to learn and willing to listen, I'll share the information. I don't believe in safeguarding and hiding everything. I think that's the wrong way to move forward.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, and that's why we do this show. We try to put out information, you know, kind of an individual. That's why we like having you guys on the show. We can go down rabbit holes, have cool guests go down and explain things really in detail. And maybe you won't be able to get the whole how to grow everything start to finish if you watch just one episode. But if you watch the whole series, you're going to get a really good understanding from a bunch of people that have a really good understanding and a really good, background in the different topics that they go into.
You know, even though we wander around, the core message is still the same. And if someone's trying to grasp how to grow aquaponically, this is you know, this isn't just 101. It's 102 and 202 and 303 and 2.
It's the ultimate show.
Yep.
Yep. So if they can step into the deep end or just listen from the sidelines, they're going to pick up a lot of good info. I haven't heard, not to paint a rosy picture, but I haven't heard one creative storytelling blatant lie from anyone that was on today. Whereas in other things I've participated in, I have to kind of hold it because I'm like, this mofo is completely stretching the truth. I'll let him have his say so I can then ask the questions. But there are companies out there that still, on not just lights or not just this or that, they still promote flat out lies. And with the politicians we have in power who do the same thing, they think it's okay. It isn't. Tell the truth. Not hard to do.
Man, I love how you think. I love how you think. I like you.
Yeah.
It's the world today. It's the world today. It's the younger people that are controlling the economy that are really is how it's coming. I mean, hell, we got a reality star for a president, so that tells you. I mean, that just says caps off what you just said.
Well, props to Fish Ganja Guy for sharing his test results and doing the side-by-side and taking his time to put that information out there. I mean, he took time out of his day and takes time to do video and edit his videos and, you know, all that stuff and work together with.
He's taking time out of his day to tell the truth about what he saw with his own eyes, and they'll have people try to discredit him because he told the truth. It's the same vicious cycle, but as long as we keep standing up telling the truth, it's going to be heard.
Yep.
I gotta believe out of me. That'll be my next investment.
Appreciate that. I appreciate all that, guys. We'll see what happens next, but stay in touch. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Silver Arm, why don't you tell people how to find you?
I'm in my YouTube page, Silver Arm, or Facebook. I got a new Facebook account, Silver Arm Aquaponics. And just watch my videos and subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and try to go green and grow aquaponics. And like I promote, like people like Marty called me a preacher once. I said, it sounds like a broken record. I say it all the time. I say, hey man, I said, grow. It's the best thing you're gonna love if you go aquaponics. And I say it all the time. I said it's 100% organic, and it's an ecosystem and works awesome. So you'll fall in love with it, and it'll give you awesome product. And just subscribe if you're not subscribing, and like my videos, and share, spread the word around. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Roger, how do people find you?
Well, you know me, guys. I'm the administrator and head moderator at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com. And I'd like to extend an invitation to Silver Arm there to come out and post some things, join the forum, and post some things about his aquaponic experiences. Meanwhile, a lot of the guys on the panel are doing that already, my friend. And that's it for me right now. I'm still working on my network, and we'll get that back to you when we're ready. I don't want to talk too much about it. It's really more of about, I could give you websites where you could go do things now, but it's not ready yet. So we've got something really special we're going to work out. And I think everybody you know and love is going to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And it's going to be a wide open thing, a network supporting everything from cannabis to veterans, and even all the influx of the senior people that are now growing their own marijuana. The people that were scared to grow marijuana or never smoked marijuana in their life and have been chained down by pharmaceutical, drugs and all, and can't function. And then all of a sudden they realize that the truth comes out when the Library of Congress has to release the true facts of the government studies and all, and they say, wait a minute, and then and states are doing medical marijuana. Well, I'm sorry, but I just I'm sorry. I know I'm going on here. I got. But with all the people that are doing allowing more and more senior people are coming into our life with us, and we're going to try to provide a support network for those kind of people, disabled veterans and older folks and people on Medicare and such like that. So that's a little preview of part of what the network's all about.
Cool. Alrighty, you guys can find me at Potent Ponics and potentponics.com, potentponics@gmail.com. If you guys are interested in taking one of my classes, the next aquaponic cannabis class is at Ouroboros Farms. You can check out their location, ouroborosfarms.com. That'll be on August 19th and 20th if you're interested in taking an in-person aquaponic cannabis training class with me. What else? I think that's everything. I did have one little gripe. There was a aquaponics company that put in a newsletter this week that was fucking ridiculous. They're out there saying that potassium carbonate is bad for your aquaponic system.
I've seen that post you posted.
Holy shit balls, are they dumb. First off, it is one of the safest and best options for potassium, and I don't know, it's just one more example of why that same people that put out a newsletter, I feel like every other week we're talking about how just ridiculously bad their information is. But just because that one of the people that they had on it ludicrously overdosed it, and when they tell you the dosages, yeah, well, it's pretty clear they put about 4 times as much as they should have in, but if I put anything at 4 times as much as they should in, it's going to hurt the system.
Yeah.
That's a pretty simple explanation. So just don't put 4 times as much as you're supposed to into the system. It was the same people that said EM1 is bad, said that lactobacillus ferments are bad, said that using microbial inoculants are bad, saying that using non-organic iron is bad. All kinds of just ridiculously just complete garbage information that has no scientific basis. There's no white papers for any of this. It's just they had a bad experience with one of their customers, have no actual understanding of the chemistry behind it, and then put out these garbage newsletters every other week or whatever it is that they put it out. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to bother even mentioning them to give them that much credit, but if you've read it this week, you know exactly who I'm talking about. So, and these are the same people that went out there and said that you can't grow cannabis in aquaponics. So, again, they just have no fucking idea what the hell they're talking about. So,
but I put my links too if they want to give me an email at fishing 420 fishing butts at gmail.com too. That's another way that they could get a.
Say that again, bro.
What is it? 420 fish and buds at gmail.com.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm actually going to start up a new little short video series, and every time I read something that's that stupid on a forum or a Facebook group or something, I'm not gonna say who said it. I'm just gonna read what the stupid comment was, and then we're going to educate people as to why this commonly spread myth or idea or whatever, because there's a whole bunch of just stupid stuff in aquaponics. Like, you still got a ton of people pushing hydroxides pretty hardcore with no understanding of how carbonates play into, when you're trying to get very high microbial counts, or how less stable they are compared to actually maintaining a proper buffer in your system. And as we all know, maintaining a constant pH is always going to give you better plant and microbial and fish growth than allowing it to go up and down and up and down and up and down like you do with hydroxides, which is, again, another thing that just the industry needs to move away from. And as we work on perfecting some of these techniques and standards, we'll be able to get away from all this stuff. So, but that's some information for the future. But yeah, I got a bunch of cool projects in the works that you guys will be keen on here soon, as I'm allowed to talk. And thanks for everyone for watching. Shout out to all those who sat through the whole episode, and thanks again for Infinitry and Spectrum King for joining us. Spectrum King was very awesome to join us on pretty short notice. I just wanted to surprise Fish Ganja Guy. I had no idea they'd end up staying for the whole episode, so big props to them. And I think this might be the longest episode we've done yet. So cheers to those who made it through the whole episode. Thanks a lot. Take care, and we'll see you guys again on Monday.
Badass info.